1.
Alrighty, we are on. Welcome everyone to the Red Dragon Inn. It's our new D&D talk show. This is our first premiere for it, so if you guys notice anything you like or don't like, or
The music's still going.
oh, thank you. I forgot about that. Music.
Just rock out for the
There we
whole
go.
time.
All right, so welcome to Red Dragon Inn. It's our premiere. We are still working out some issues, so bear with us. Let us know in the chat if you guys like, dislike, or improvements I can make. We'll figure out how we're going to do this. So the topic for tonight is going to be about characters. So our channel is Horsemen of the Apocalypse on Tuesday nights. 6:30 p.m. for Pacific.
Music's still there.
It's still there?
Yeah.
Oh, I muted the wrong one, that's why. Are we good now? Music stop? I think so.
Oh, yes, I think it's gone.
Alright,
Yep.
so let's start over. Welcome everyone to Red Dragon
Hey!
Inn.
All right.
Third time's the charm.
We are working out technical stuff. Sorry about that. Thanks for sticking with us. So this is our Dungeons and Dragons talk show that we're going to be having on Wednesday nights. For right now, we're going to be doing every other week until Halloween. And then from there on, we're going to try to do every week. But we'll also be throwing in PvPs on Wednesdays once a month. So our channel is Horsemen of the Apocalypse, also known as HotA. And the normal campaign runs on Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So check us out on Tuesdays if you haven't yet. We have some upcoming stuff for our channel. So we have this talk show, the PvP, and we have a Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign that's going to be starting on Monday nights. We are taking players for that and for PvP. So if you want to apply for that, go to our website, hotarpg.com, and follow the instructions there for submitting your application. So we have some familiar faces, and we have a new one tonight, so we'll kind of go around the table and do some introductions. My name is Sean Steele. I'm the main DM for the channel, and I hope you guys like everything we're doing, and go ahead and take it away, Stephen.
Yeah, I am that new face that nobody here has ever seen before. So my name is Steven. I guess you could consider me, as far as this group chat goes, the stand-in for the average gamer. Been playing D&D for a couple years, DM'd a little bit more recently, but excited to join these guys. I've loved their stuff, and yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Glad to have you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to be here.
AJ.
AJ.
So me now?
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah.
I'm Andrew. You would know me as Rin in the HotA campaign on Tuesdays, every night from 6:30 till, we go pretty late now. I think we go up to like 10:30. So yeah. But yeah, you can see us there and enjoying our little party of misfits and leaping before they lookers. lots of good stuff and humor there. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys and talking with you here.
All right. Everyone, this is Kyle here in York, PA. I play everyone's favorite halfling bard, Finley Shenanigans, on our HotA program. Really looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Definitely want to thank Steven for hopping on here with us, so we can. I think a lot of good conversations are coming our way in the next hour, 2, 3, 4, however long the hell we go, whatever.
8. Yeah, no big deal.
Either, man, we'll just roll. Let's keep talking about it.
I'll call in sick tomorrow. I'm sure I got one vacation day left.
I am actually off tomorrow, so I don't care how the hell long we go. But anyway, there you go. Thanks to everyone for joining, and feel free to join in the chat too while we're going through. So, Kayla, take it away.
Okay. I am Kayla, coming from the other side of Pennsylvania. And I worked on the Divinity lore for developing HotA and everything like that. It's been such a fun thing from the start, and it's amazing to see what it's actually turned into, like getting to see the players interact with the world a little bit. That's been super exciting, and I'm really excited for this talk show. I've been on the show a little bit. I was a little gnome lass by the name of Lilash that caused the group a little bit of headache.
A lot of it.
Yeah, but
Some
she
headaches.
walked away with half of them as friends, so
Right.
I'm counting that as a win for her.
Yes. Awesome. So if anyone is new to the channel, you can scroll underneath the stream and there's a bunch of panels down there. It kind of explains everything. We got points that you can accumulate for playing mini games on the stream. There's a heist. You can challenge people. So all the rules are down there. It kind of explains everything. But the main focus for this is just getting to talking about D&D. So we have a campaign where we're playing and we really focus on the game, but we don't really get a chance to talk about everything else D&D related. And obviously we're all here because we have a similar interest, and that is Dungeons and Dragons in general. And I mean, we all think it's the greatest game because of the ways that you can role play and do other things you can't do in other games. So that's why we started the show, so we can talk about this stuff and maybe get into some behind the scenes stuff with HotA. And at the end of the show, we'll open up for viewer Q&A. So if you guys have any questions you want to ask us or about the channel, that'll be at that'll be the last segment in the show. So we have 5 topics we'll go over: character creation, group dynamics, common mistakes, and metagaming. And then we'll go over our top 5. So we're gonna have a top 5 every Red Dragon in, and we'll each give our top of whatever the topic is, and that'll give us the top 5, and it's gonna be pet peeves. So let's talk characters. So the first section is character creation. So I think this is a really good topic for us to do our first Red Dragon in premiere with, because that's the first thing you got to start with when you play Dungeons and Dragons. So we've all been there as players or as DMs, walking people through character creation. So we'll just kind of open up to the floor. What do you guys want to talk about with character creation?
Go ahead, AJ. Go. Do it, bro.
No, I was going to say, I think we need to probably, I guess, think about the first and most important thing. Are we thinking of character creation through the eyes of the DM or through the eyes of the player?
Let's go through the eyes of the player.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I can recall specifically when I first started playing this game and like bought a player's handbook and was like, make a character, and was like, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. So this is super fun. Even still, I had actually played Neverwinter on Xbox.
I played it
too. Right? So you have like a little bit of like, okay, so you have stats, and then okay, so if I'm a Dragonborn, I get +2. Okay, well, higher numbers. That sounds good, right? Yeah, sure. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I know for beginner character creation, it's a lot to take in. So I mean, any chance I get to like try to help someone make a character is definitely, you have to talk slow and really explain yourself, because for you're like, you know what you're talking about now. For those beginner guys, it's like,
yeah,
not a clue what the hell you're talking about.
It's a really high learning curve.
Right. So,
definitely a lot lower with 5th edition than like say 3.5.
I've heard that.
Which is really good for new people. I'm kind of curious your guys' opinions on this part. Do you like teaching people how to create characters? I've done it a lot, and I used to absolutely love it, but I've got through showing and teaching people how to do it, and it's really time consuming. I've done it so many times now where I kind of got burnt out on it. So that's why with this campaign, when we were looking for you guys for players, I went with no new players because I didn't want to have to walk people through it. What are your guys' opinions on that?
Personally, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Okay. Just making sure.
You're a little quiet here. Okay.
Okay. So personally, character creation has been my favorite part of D&D. Like, I love it so much. Even all the stuff that I get to do, like as a DM and like world building and all that stuff, like it's so great. But it's also just really fun to just focus all of that creative energy on one specific character and be able to put that much like intensity into something, and then being able to like play through the game. That's really fun. But I really like teaching other people how to build characters and like getting them used to getting into character and things like that, because it's like my favorite part of the game, and you actually get to share it with somebody. And so it is really exciting. And I have learned, like Kyle says, you have to go very slowly.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to be overwhelmed by it, because there is a lot of information whenever you're making a character. And like, I found the easiest thing to do, like if I'm trying to get somebody into D&D, I'll be like, oh, you just got to make a character, you know, and all you need to do that is you got to have a class, a background, and a race, and that's it. And then you're done. And like putting it into just 3 categories, they're like, oh, okay, that seems pretty easy. We can start with that. And then you
unpack
kind of
each
start
category.
to get into it. And yeah, you kind of have to watch the person that you're teaching, though, because if you can see them getting a little bit overwhelmed, then take a break, because you don't want them to get tired of D&D before they even start.
Right.
So.
Well said.
I've always been a fan. Oh, go ahead, Steven.
I was going to say, I think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. My first mistake, the first time I DM'd, I made that mistake Kyle was talking about, where I'd been playing for a couple of years, so somebody, you know, came to my table like, hey, I've never played D&D. How to make a character? And I'm just, oh yeah, you just pick a race class. You got to remember your racial bonuses, this, that. You got to roll 4d6, drop 1. And like, I got through it all, you know, going through my process, and they just stared at me like, what?
Deer in the headlights.
Yeah, then I realized, like, okay, sorry, I said a lot of things real fast, but, you know, let's start, you know, I try and, pick out, do you at least know what race and class you want to be? Great, now we have a foundation to build around. But yeah, it's surprising. You forget just how much you're doing in character creation when you get used to it. It's weird.
I am always a fan of doing the idea, if someone asks you a question, you ask a question back at them. So if they ask you, like, how do I make a character? And I go, what character are you wanting to play? You know? It's usually, I find it better for me as a DM when it's going to be someone who's asking those questions, or if you're a player and you don't know exactly what you want, it's always great to get advice from other people who've done it with a little bit more, like they've experienced a bit more variety. They know a bit more of what can be done. And a lot of the times, if you have a player that says, I really like to play something that can do this and this and this and this, then usually it's a lot easier for the DM to say, oh yeah, you could probably fit that in with either like a fighter with the archetype champion, or you maybe can do that with a barbarian, but you try doing it with it. They'll start like literally kind of laying out a sheet of, like, if you want it to be a Han Solo character, then they're just like, okay, all right, so we're thinking that's going to be rogue and probably maybe swashbuckler, like do some one-on-ones, try that out, and then kind of giving that idea of like finding the role / stats and everything that the D&D campaign book will provide you to make the character a reality. Because I think that's the biggest important part, is not necessarily you saying, I really like to play the class, I like to play the damage, I like how their abilities work. It's more of, what can you envision yourself having the most fun with, and let us try to find the exact fit for you.
Yeah, if someone's brand new, it's like you kind of touched on it. Pick a character you want to base your character off from an established movie, or from a book, or from a show. That's a really good way to start off with, because things like your alignment, you know, like that's kind of a difficult concept for people to grab. And why is that important to your character? When an advanced person, like, that's not even, alignment's not even a thing. You already know what your character is going to do. It's kind of ingrained into it. But using characters from a show and say, like, Superman, you know, he would be lawful good, you know, and like, and you can use those as kind of segues to explain some things that are a little more complicated. Have you guys ever used those, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, like, because I think I didn't want to necessarily skip too far into other parts of the topics, but one of the things that I'd like to kind of imagine for people is like, when it's character creation, you're creating a character, you're not creating a hero. You're literally creating someone who is a person. They have an interesting little quirk, they have a trait, they have a flaw, they have something that makes them believable. Like, I mean, kleptomaniac type rogues is a very easy stereotype one, but then let's say you have a rogue who really likes to enjoy, taking and stealing things, but he has a terrible phobia of water because he almost drowned. And so whenever he's confronted with a moat or a river and he has to escape, it's just like the worst shit for him at that point. I think it's a lot of fun. One of my characters that I just created was a crotchety old man who thought he was the most amazing and spectacular person in the world, but he knew he only had such limited amounts of magical energy, so all he could do was illusion magic. So everything he did was smoke and mirrors, but he tried to make himself play off as like the most powerful wizard ever. But it would obviously just be a sham. But sometimes people would believe him, and he'd get bolstered up with it like, yes. So I mean, I think it's a lot more fun for you to find something as a character that you can enjoy, and you can then bring that kind of energy, and you'll find you'll have a lot more fun playing the person than trying to be the hero that plays the part.
Okay.
Yeah, I have noticed that like people building a character, there's usually two different types. There's the people that like to focus on the character, and then there are the people that like to focus on like, okay, what can I do? And
like
the people, the people that are like, okay, what can I do? I'm not that kind of person, so it's a little bit harder for me to like teach them because they want to know like the stats of all the classes and all the races and everything so that they can pick the best one for them. But like Andrew said, I think he put it about as well as anyone could. Like, imagine what you want your character to be like, and then try to match the class and race to that, because that is a lot easier than looking at this long list of classes and long list of races and being like, okay, which one do I want to go with which? And because it can get very overwhelming very quickly. But if you do it that way, it's more fun too.
Well, kind of tying in with what AJ was talking about a little bit, and then our boy Bacon here in the chat said, if you're stuck in Lord of the Rings, like who would you want to do? Like who would you want to be?
Yep, that's a really good base.
And then AJ had mentioned about like a hero or something. Like, there's lots of little things that you could do. Like, do you want to be like an Indiana Jones character? Do you want to be like the Hulk? Do you want to fly? Do you want to like? Yeah, there's lots of ways around the initial stages of frightened deer in headlights players. Like, oh, what the hell you're talking about, mods and things. Like, you can kind of baby step into that later. But I know when I was trying to help my kids make their characters, I was just like, who do you want to be? And the 8-year-old says, I want to be like the Hulk. All right, cool. Well, that just gives us a focus, and then we can go that way and figure something out from there. And honestly, helping people do that, it's actually kind of fun too, because it's like, all right, so could we just go down this path, or can we multi-class a little bit? So it's actually kind of, I don't know, I think it's kind of a challenge to really fill the shoes of what they're looking to do with their character.
Shadow absolutely shouted out that they liked how you did it, Sean. Because, I know yours is a little bit more advanced for players, not so much for noobs, but it was a lot of fun to do it that way.
Yep. So
yes.
Kind of break it down, because you guys went through it. I went through it, but just kind of explain people who are watching what kind of character creation process did I use with you guys, and what did you guys like and not like? Like, what was that experience like?
You're not going to own up to it and just like tell us?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was definitely different in a very good way.
I would say one thing. Oh, sorry, Kyle. I'm just...
Well, no, you're good. You're good. The only thing I would say on top of that is like, it was almost like, the only word that really comes to my mind right now is like the advanced version of character creation, because we went through like each individual ability and like, why do you think you're good at it? I'm like, I don't fucking know, because I'm good at it, damn it. And then like, well, that's -3. That was a bad answer, Kyle. Like,
yeah, that was terrible.
Right.
Yeah,
that was terrible. Okay, all right, well, let me try the next one here and tell you. And it kind of helped formulate Finley a little bit more in terms of like, yeah, I'm not good at strength. I'm a weakling, but one of the quirks I have is I have persuasion on talking to ladies and disadvantage talking to guys when it comes to persuasion rolls. Like, it's a very specific thing, but it's super fun, and like it definitely helped the Shadow a little bit. But yeah, like Shadow said, I really enjoyed the way we did it with that. You guys
I think you should share your macro, the one that you used for it, because that would be really helpful.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, shit, one second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's gonna take me a second to pull it up. So, Kayla, I don't know if you want to comment on, because you saw all the character creation and stuff.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier. So I'm very big into like the character side of character creation and less like the stat side. So one of the things that I do whenever I'm like making a character, and especially like picking proficiencies and stuff, I obviously want to pick proficiencies that are like helpful for me, because that's going to be really useful. But at the same time, like there are some times where like I was making a character once and I was like, okay, I'm going to put stealth as a proficiency. And I was like, but she's not really a stealthy person, so I'm not going to pick that even though I really want to.
Internal struggle.
Yes, it's so hard. But yeah, I do think that like coming up with, even if it's something that's never like really vocalized, if it's just something that you know, like, oh, my character really is really good at this because of this, or this is my character's favorite spell and this is why. It's not just because it deals a lot of damage, it's because the XYZ. I mean, you know, coming up with things like that to kind of connect the character that you've built with the stats on the sheet makes it a lot easier to not only like get in the mindset of the character themselves that you're having to play in this world where stats matter, but also if you're in a situation where you don't really know what to do and you look down at your sheet and you're like, oh, that's right, I have this and my character loves to do this, so I'm just going to do that. So it really helps in a lot of different ways. But, yeah.
Steven, do you prefer RP sided characters where people build their characters more in the storyline, the background of it, or do you like it when the other side where it's more the mechanics of, if this is a character you want to make, cool, let's make him like the badassest, connect the dots kind of thing, or a little bit of both? Like, what do you prefer?
I think no matter the game, in my personal preference, I try to emphasize the RP side, but I can't fault somebody for making something that is the most mechanically sound that'll fit. I think you should always strive to be a fully fleshed out character, not just generic fighter number 3. This one has a sword and a shield. Your backup character carries a great sword. Fantastic. You can roll those and that'll fight in combat, but that is a super boring character. I think RP should come first, but you do still want to make it combat viable. You know, for an example, a recent character I rolled up, Grave Cleric. My idea is he doesn't actually really use melee weapons. He's a studious guy, you know, reads a lot of books. He has a mace on him, but it's rusty. He never uses it. So I put a lot of thought into the RP aspect, but I mean, he still fills a combat and mechanical role as well, being the healer and support. Yeah, I think when I first started really getting into this, like my second or third campaign, I think the best question I was asked was, why is your character an adventurer? And it was the first time I was asked that, and you start to think, yeah, why is this guy making the choice to go out and fight monsters? That's not a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's an easy question that anybody could ask, and it really helps you solidify that character.
Oh, you're good. Keep going. We had a follower. I just wanted to shout out for him. Go ahead.
So it's a really good jumping off point, and it's simple enough that anybody can grasp, whether you're an advanced character, you know, or an advanced player, or you're just a beginner, is giving a person a reason to leave the front door. Are they just going out for gold? Are they wanting fame? Are they just doing it for a sense of duty?
You said
duty. I'm laughing at myself.
We are all children.
There's worse humor that we'll laugh at.
So yeah,
that was a good point. That was a good aspect. I like that.
The stats we used for our game, real quick, because that was mentioned earlier, so I pulled it up. So normally it's 46 drop 1. For the 6 stats that we used for our game was 46 D1, 5D4 D1, 3D8 D1, 2D6 plus 2D8 D1, 3D6 plus 1D8 D1, and then 3D6 plus 1D4 D1. So it gave a really different span of stats, and then you guys got to pick where you wanted it. How did you two, like, because we also had you roll that once, and you pick that or standard array. Because we got a little combination of both for what you guys ended up going with. But how did you guys like that stat rollout for your character creation?
I loved it, but at the same time, I hated what happened to me because I was hoping for some more like like crazy dynamics and stuff like that, and I got like 11, 11, 11, 10, 11. I was just like, how did I got all 11.
Joe average, yeah.
Yeah, I was the average.
Joe
I'm like,
average.
okay, fine. And I took
My
it.
skin crawls hearing those stats.
So I'm like, I'm not good at anything, but I'm okay. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I know Kyle. I think yours was the worst to start, wasn't it?
Yeah. I
Who
mean,
took
I
the standard? Was it Dylan?
I think Dylan did.
Yeah,
I think
Dylan
you have to
did
get a
standard.
standard.
That's right. Dylan did standard, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Dylan. We were practicing the macro the night before just to see if it was working, and the very first one he clicked was like, oh, and like the clouds parted and his computer like blew up and like everything. It was like, shit, I gotta get a new computer. Like it was amazing. And then when he clicked the button for his character, like legit style, it was like, it was like shit. Wasted it. But no, I really liked it. When it comes to that kind of stuff, it actually brings us up another side question. Has anyone, and maybe I'm wrong in doing this, but I mean, in terms of like just a quick sidestep. So, has anyone ever done a character where you roll the stats, keep them in order, and then build a character off of that? Or do you make a character, roll your stats, and then figure out where you want them to go?
The old down the line.
I've only
Down the
done.
line, regardless.
I've never done it, and I don't want. I say I don't want to, but now that I think about it, it's just a different challenge of character creation.
If you do down the line, I figure you do the stats first, and then you have to build a character that fits into those attributes.
I love the idea of someone picking a character and like saying, I'm gonna wizard, and then you get 20 in strength, and you're just like 9, 4, 3.
The only problem with that is,
wizard.
From a DM standpoint, that can make it really hard to balance things. If all 4, 5, 6 players did that, your CR challenge rating is going to be off because it's assuming that they're going to be at least at standard array, and so it can complicate it. But it can come out for some cool RP moments, I guess. So it's a trade-off of what's a focus.
So it was just
RP
a question of I think a common. I think maybe I should have just said it more like maybe more of a common way that people go about it is if you're going to do the straight line, that's first, and then it's like, okay, what would my character look like? And then the other one is this is what I want my character to be, and then you roll, and then you plug and play where you want to go. I mean, I can't see both of those coexisting where you make a character, it's like, yes, this is my guy. And like AJ said, he's a fucking 80 strength wizard, and my intellect's a fucking 2. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I can't play this.
Yeah.
As much as you want to role play that, that's kind of difficult.
No, I made a down the line character once. It was like the first time that I actually played because we were trying to get everything set up like pretty quickly because we weren't going to be able to play for long as it is. And so the DM asked me, he was like, okay, what kind of character do you want to be? I was like, I don't know. I've never even looked at them. I don't know any of the classes or races or anything. And so he was like, okay, let's just roll your stats and see what happens. And it was really cool, but it's a really good idea for people who don't know what they want. But I wish that I had just taken the time to like kind of read about the classes a little bit because I ended up I can't remember what I was. It was some type of melee class, but I much prefer to like be in the back like shooting stuff far away from the action. And so I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. I still had a lot of fun, but it's especially hard to get into like a character mindset if you do it that way because your primary thing is the stats, and so all of your brain just kind of focuses on the stats, especially towards the beginning. But a lot of people prefer to do it that way, especially people that have played D&D a lot. If they're just like trying to make a character really quick, they'll be like, oh, I've played everything, so I'll just do whatever I come up with.
And down the line can help with building an NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the idea of owning up to bad stats sometimes, and I feel like I love the idea of someone who wants to throw in as much creativity as you can. You just feel like the person who wants to make the most persuasive argument, but it's like, I rolled shit on charisma. I have like a -4. So it's like, I'm trying really hard. -7.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well, I would just to kind of piggyback off of that.
Mhm.
Maybe not so much for beginner players. I think as you get more experience with it, you could definitely challenge yourself
Right.
to make that shit work. So it's not to say that if I did a straight roll and I wanted to be a wizard and my intelligence was a 7, I wouldn't try to just make it work because, like AJ said, if your charisma was a 4, it's like I'm really trying to be persuasive. I promise, but maybe for more of the seasoned, kind of players, and um, it's something that maybe you could kind of challenge yourself. But I definitely wouldn't recommend that for new people. You want to, give them kind of a fighting chance to get in there and be heroic in a way. You got to hook them, and get them into it, and then let them clusterfuck it up later.
The way you hook players is you don't fully explain how stats are done. The very first character I created was rolled. It was 46 D1. I didn't hear the D1 part, so I had a real good stats. A bunch of
Oh.
16s, 18s, like a 20 because I was a half elf bard. I'm like, I'm awesome at this. I'm good at everything.
Yeah.
I don't know why everybody complains.
Yeah.
I have the best character.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, not having
And
the
then-
rough one.
Yeah, then I created my second character and I realized, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. I can be bad at things.
Oh man.
When
Yep.
we did our character creation for our show, we had a huge emphasis on flaws. What were your guys' opinions about that, or just flaws in general for those who aren't players?
I think
I-
flaws are a super important thing to give to your guys. Whether it's something from the background itself or just something you pick for your character, just because you want to do it. I like Andrew had mentioned before. Kleptomaniac rogue is a stereotype, but I rolled up a Kenku rogue who is 100% that. But his flaws, he is a bird. He's got a bird brain, so he doesn't actually know the value of the items he steals. He just
Yes.
cares
Ooh,
if
shiny.
it's shiny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
That's great.
That's his whole option. So
It'd be like
one of the
a +4 sword that's really dull and a shiny thing, like they'll go for the shiny thing and not the sword. Yeah.
Oh my god, that would be
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
The first thing he stole was basically a flashlight ring that when you activated it, it shined bright light in a 10-foot radius. So he just spent the next 10 minutes peck on, peck off, peck on, peck off.
That's so
Yeah.
cute.
So what's your guy doing back there? He's still pecking the ring. Just keep going.
That is great.
Oh, Fish the Sneak.
I like that a lot.
I love him so much.
Oh, that's a fun name too. The one thing too, when it comes to flaws, I like flaws. We talked about this in character creation, having a low stat in something.
Mhm.
Again, just kind of adds an extra RP dynamic to it because it's one of those things where maybe you as a person or a character try to shy away from doing, like, no, strength is not my thing. But then when it comes down to it and you have to do it, it's like this could end terribly. And maybe it helps you think of different ways to do it. But I actually wrote a note down here of flaws and quirks. Like, does anyone do both sides of this coin or not? Where you have your character so fully fleshed out that you have all your quirks, and you just stick with it the whole game, or do you have it where
It evolves over time.
evolves, right? Like it's like, oh, that's actually something kind of fun I want to do now. I'm the second part. I might have a little bit of something, like maybe one or two things that my guy might do, but I like to evolve, like additional stuff as the character grows of different little quirks that I do, or things that I might say, or ways that I react to certain things. But that's just me. I don't know what anyone else felt about creating their characters.
Yeah.
With that.
I'd say I'm probably a mix of both. Like going into it, I have just to help myself get in the mindset. I usually have one major flaw that my character has, like a personality flaw, and then as it goes on, I find little things where maybe I reacted too quickly to a situation, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, I guess she does that now, or
Yes.
just kind of adapting with it as it goes along, because I do think that's a really fun way to do it, because at the beginning, you're not going to have your full character fleshed out, and so it is fun to kind of discover the quirks that they have
There's-
along the way. But
Yeah, there is a lot of truth to that, where most of the time when you play a character, you don't know exactly how you're going to play it spot on until you've done maybe about 2 sessions. Then you start to know, like, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
And I think a lot of it too with fleshing out that character, because you figure your background, you figure your flaws, a little bit of your backstory, but then you just got to jump into the game and figure it out together. But a lot of that is about the group dynamic, which will kind of segue to the second topic. Is
great segue.
What
Well
kind
done.
It's like,
yeah, that happened. So there's the dynamic that the type of game that the DM wants to run. So I think some mistakes with newer groups, because a lot of time when someone gets in a DM is like there's a group of players and someone's got to run it. So who's gonna pick up the DM shield, you know? So I think one of the most important things to establish for the group dynamics from square one before character creation even begins is touch base with your players. Tell them what kind of game you want to run, and as a player, tell your DM what kind of game is going to be fun for you, because you don't want to get 5-6 sessions into it and the play styles are completely different and you're not having fun. I mean, it's a game. You're supposed to be having a good time, and the DM needs to be willing to run a game that you will like, but you also have to know the expectations of what type of game he wants to run, and it might not be a good fit. So what do you guys think about just group dynamics in general?
I think a lot of people either have this or want to have this, but a great way to get those group dynamics settled is a session 0. I think it's very underappreciated, but it helps take care of basically everything we're going to cover in today's show. You have character creation, so you can help people craft their backstory and character to your campaign, and you also get to set expectations for everybody. Is this high, low magic campaign, gothic themes? Are you playing it brutally realistic? Are you keeping track of encumbrance, blah, 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 boring, technical jargon? It's a great way to lay the foundation of here's me as the DM and what I expect from everybody. And it's also a chance for the players to sort of introduce, hey, I'm playing, this, I'm playing that. And you sort of can get a feel for the characters. Also, just real quick, want to shout out Dolphin Jesus, aka Ryan, who was a player in the campaign. And he met Fish as an NPC when I ran him. So he has quite the experience.
Nefty Spin loves your layout.
What up, Dolphin Jesus?
I do think that that's actually one of the first things when it comes to party dynamics or character dynamics. It's the first step is to actually character dynamic with your DM, because I think this is one of the things what Wizards of the Coast or the D&D people, whoever what you're talking about, when they introduced the Sword Coast, one of the things that was very useful about that, it gave like a baseline for everyone to build off of, and it was an almost kind of uniform, agreed kind of setting, which made everything become like, I don't have to tell you all the different intrigues, I don't have to go through all the nitty-gritty details of your character. You can kind of semi get a feel and a pick for where you want to go. But for a lot of homebrew, and when it comes to the new fresh stuff or anything that no one has ever really kind of experienced too much, it's great to talk to your DM about it and say, this is my character, this is where I kind of want his background to be, this is kind of how I want to see him interact with the world and his party members. Can you give me some kind of insight as to what he would know, what he would like to do, and what he might be involved with, so that he has some kind of great connection with the world to share with the actual players. Because I think that's the best fun thing, is when a character has to have something all by himself and making up things on the spot, it can be a little challenging. But when a DM can provide you with all the kind of little nitty-gritties that you would know, you have something to share with the other players, some kind of little insight that might be yours alone. And it helps kind of get that spark to start.
I think that we mentioned a really good point earlier about how there needs to be a conversation before the campaign starts with the DM and the players. The DM needs to be okay, what kind of campaign are you guys wanting? And it needs to be a collective decision. It can't be majority where one player is like, I don't really want to play that, and then they still join the campaign. Like, there is no shame in saying that's not my play style. I'll find a different group. Like, there is no shame in that at all, because if you do that, everyone's going to have a much better time with their game. It could be a hard thing to do if you are really good friends with the people who are playing this game, and you can always try it. But if it's not your thing, don't just stick around and hate the game to play with people you like. And if that ends up happening, like, there needs to be ongoing conversations about, okay, well, how can we make this better? How can we make it more fun for you? So I definitely think that coming up with a good group dynamic, there needs to be a lot of conversations, and a lot of people don't want to have those conversations because they're just like, oh, it's supposed to be a game, it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be easy, not supposed to overthink it. But D&D is a little bit complicated in the sense that if everybody is not having a good time, I mean, one player can just ruin it for everybody. And that sucks when it happens.
Right.
So, but like one of the best pieces of advice I got as a DM was whenever, like, I was trying to figure out, okay, how does the DM thing work? Was that you need to listen to your players. And like, you need to understand what they want from you. And if that's not something you can give, you need to be honest about it, because you're not going to enjoy running a game that you hate. But yeah, anyway, group dynamics is very important.
I think the biggest tip I can give to any DM out there is at the end of your sessions, because most groups do some kind of decompression where they kind of talk about, what had happened, kind of summarize it all. But we go further than that. We go into like, what went well and how can we make sure that happens again? What didn't go well? What didn't you guys like? And what are ways to improve it? And we really try to hit all of those finer points, so that way if you keep doing it at the end of your game sessions, even if you're brand new, if you actually implement those changes and find ways to reinforce what went well, you're going to find that your players are going to start having a much better time and a lot more fun, and you're going to see your skills as a DM really start to grow. My personal experience running these guys through this campaign, when we're doing that, they've really helped sharpen skills for me and different things about, like, hey, you need to describe things more. That's one of my setbacks, one of my flaws for being a DM, is I don't describe the smells and the feels and the way things look, or enough. And so I can be aware of that, but if they have an opportunity given to them to be able to voice that, it helps me to improve that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that definitely comes along with the group dynamic just from the get-go of, we're supposed to all be friends playing a game together.
Yeah.
You should be able to be open and honest with each other and not feel like you need to hold back in terms of, like, you're sharpening each other's swords, really, by doing that. And, like, not sword fighting, just sharpening. Anyway. No, but I mean, that's definitely something that I've actually incorporated a little bit different than a decompression afterwards. We still like kind of talk afterwards, just like a little bit. People got to go sleep, that kind of thing. But I really try to make it a point to every now and again do like one-on-ones with everyone, just a real quick 30 minutes. You like where your character's going? You like the story so far? Anything's doing good? Anything you want more of? Any things you want me to improve on? Just individually, just so I kind of feel like I'm showing each of my players their own individual moments of a conversation that, they can tell me about, where they want their character to go, and we kind of formulate together, and it's kind of fun, how it fits all together, making people, all the pieces of the puzzle come together. Interestingly enough, by the way, since we did character creation for the first part, I took group dynamic a whole nother fucking direction in terms of like character creation of like how characters kind of stuff. Like, we run a game with 4 clerics. Like I thought we were going more like the you do this and you do this, or I want to do this, or like Steven was saying about session 0 was definitely a good time to talk about that. But I'm super happy we went this other direction in terms of like the people. I didn't which one are we doing? We can do both, right?
Yeah, whatever. Anything with group dynamic at all, we can talk about.
Couple things on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I love everything you're saying and agree, but when I'm gonna say, if I heard Finley saying this, I'd be a little scared. He's like saying, "We're going to go and brush up on your sword play, some one-on-one time."
Right. In our downtime,
I do like how apparently Bacon is calling you out on your BS. Only him when he asks for help.
Yeah. Yeah, in our downtime, we can sharpen each other's swords a bit and, play a little bit around and compare size. Anyway, so yeah, when I saw group dynamic, I took it the player creation side when it comes to the conversation topics of, it's almost like no one ever wants to take up the mantle of DM, but when somebody does, it's almost like second on the list is no one ever wants to take up the mantle of cleric or something. Like no one ever wants to just be the healer guy. Like everyone. So, I mean, one of the things that
that's a big part of it. Yeah,
comes to mind is any kind of superhero group that's out there, like the Avengers and the X-Men and stuff like that. People collectively as a group, they're badasses. Individually, they're badasses. They each have their own individual things that they do that makes them special and unique to the group, but as a whole. So I don't know if I'm mini segueing over to that from like the player side to the character side.
Yeah, let's go into it. Yeah.
That's literally all the notes I have was on that.
That's fine. No, yeah, that's fine.
Well, before we go too far, I did want to say one thing about just from the player side. I think it's also important to know that the conversations everybody was talking about are ongoing. That's a good piece of advice of if you lay the groundwork for what you want your campaign to be or what you're expecting as a DM or from your DM, but if it strays too far or you just want to see something else, never be afraid to tell your DM, like, hey, we haven't seen this type of thing, hey, your past few sessions have been combat heavy, can we do some more RP? But yeah, just never be afraid to approach your DM or your characters for what they want or what you want to provide them. Now we can go whatever Kyle was rambling about.
You have permission, Kyle.
Why do you hate clerics so much, Kyle?
Well, no, and again, everything. I wrote down a couple things that Steven said already about really important things. Like session 0 is super important. Setting expectations is super important. Laying the foundation is super important. That's all. All really good player stuff. Because if you don't do that stuff, and then 6 sessions down the road, something does come up player-wise, and then it's like, well, we never really talked about that, and then XYZ happens, and then bullshit, and people get upset. So. No, that's all super important. That's all really good stuff. I wrote all that down. All my notes were on the character side of life, where it's like, how do people feel about like, do people like when you come to make a group or you come to play a game? Does everyone sit down in their session 0 and say, okay, so what does everyone want to be, and then we can kind of formulate a plan of like what everyone can do, or is it really forge that puzzle together, or is everyone like, well, we have 2 rogues because we all individually made our characters, and these 2 guys want to be rogues, so we'll just go with it. So, it was just an interesting concept of conversation of if people do come to the table with 2 rogues, like, nah, we don't really want that. Let's try to get a little more variety, or is it more? Let's all just be paladins. Fuck it, and we'll roll deep with 5 paladins in the campaign. I don't know, just from that side.
You make me think of Matt Mercer's. The 5 bards, and all you have are caltrops.
Like I say, cycling back to character creation and what Kyle's saying, an interesting way I found to help a new character or a new player build their character is they played some MOBA, so I just put it in terms they understood. Do you want to play tank, DPS, support, or healer? And that terminology is used a lot. I think it's a great framework to sort of throw your party together, like, okay, who wants to be the tank? We have these roles covered, and those are good bases, so you at least have mechanically some good group dynamics. If you have at least 1 tank, 1 DPS, 1 support, 1 heal. I get very nervous when I join a party that has no cleric or healer.
Put a pin in that. I'm gonna touch base on that. Put a pin in that. I want to comment on that later, but continue. You're good.
Sheet fell down.
No, it didn't. Don't pay attention to that.
I have that exact same lamp.
Oh my god.
Just gonna fix
Yeah,
that.
you're fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. Kyle, you're right.
Well, all right. So since he's fixing that, the one I actually made a note of here was that's kind of a common statement, really, that you see sometimes, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Of when it comes to group dynamics, when it comes to putting together, me personally, think that if a party doesn't have a cleric, I think it just kind of adds a little bit of a different perspective of how we're going to play this game. Like, do people feel like we're playing D&D? Someone has to D&D, someone has to DM, someone has to be, and then we figure out the rest from there? Or is there groups where it's like, let's just roll with that one and see what happens? So I actually made a note of that, so I'm glad you said that, Stephen, because it is. What's the word that I'm looking for? Not a snafu. That's not even a word. What's the
Snafu's a word.
Stigma? Like a stigma kind of thing? Like
stereotype?
Stereotype, yeah.
Cookie cutter mold? What are we talking about?
We have to have a cleric, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, breaking away from cookie cutter builds, I like that.
Yeah.
Break the mold.
It is possible for like you to have a group of all rogues. Like, it's possible for you not to have a healer or something, but going into that, it's something that the DM has to be aware of, because the DM needs to take into account, okay, there's no one to heal them really. I need to make sure to give them plenty of gold so that they can buy healing potions, because they're going to be needing to keep really heavily stocked on those, because if not, they're all going to die. So it's important to like keep that in mind if you're a DM, like what your players are and how balanced their party is.
My personal opinion on it is the DM creates the world, he runs the monsters, he runs the NPCs. It's not his job to run the characters or the dynamic that the group wants to run. So like when I was getting you guys all set up and everything, it was there are the recommendations, but you guys are all experienced players. What kind of group do you guys want to have? Do you want to have a well-rounded one where somebody can do the things, or do you want to be niche? And just leave it up to you guys, because you don't get to do as much as far as creation in the whole world perspective. So I don't like it when DMs try to step in there and make those decisions too. Give those to the players and let them figure it out. Just because something is meta, that doesn't mean is what has to be run. If that's not what's going to be fun for them, let them make a weird composition if that's what they want to do.
Oh yeah, you can make any party work. It's just like Kayla said, if you got no healer, maybe the DM tosses you a couple extra healing potions, or drafts up, instead of a wand of magic missiles, maybe it's a wand of healing word, or something like that to bridge that gap without solving the problem for you.
That's nice.
Like with your guys' party, you don't have a rogue, which is rare. I mean, almost every party has a rogue. People love playing rogues. That's what you guys wanted to have, is no rogue, which is great. It's opened up a lot of really fun moments where a normal traditional party with a rogue would just be like, oh, I'm gonna lockpick this or go steal this off of this person. You guys haven't had someone who's that role, so you're having to figure out other ways to do it. So it can really add layers to an experience.
Except for the fact that since there is no rogue, I literally made sure that somewhere down the line, gonna solve those door problems, because I think we've had enough of the door being our number one enemy, getting stuck in that little prison.
Oh no.
God, that door.
Doors will always be the number one enemy, the true villain.
Right. Well, and again, just again for more of the character side, and this actually rolls again into some things that we did pre-stream and character creations and talking about stuff. Not to bring up an oldie but a goodie, but I've got to anyway because I want to. One of the things that I really like, and it's on the videos now, but I love the Ninja Turtles. Fucking love them. They're my favorite, right? And we talked about this at length numerous times.
And Ryan is still
you know,
like, what does it mean? Yeah.
I don't get it. Get it, Kyle. Dynamic of, you got the leader, the smart one, the funny one, the badass, but they all have their own individual quirks and kinks and what makes them special individually, and then as a group, they still kick ass together doing things too. So I don't know. I just really like it when that everyone kind of has those little kind of individual things for the group dynamic.
Right.
And again, it doesn't have to be a cleric as the healer. I mean, there's lots of other ways to heal people. Druids and pallies, like there's bards can heal people. Shit, like you could still. I think when you step outside your comfort zone, maybe a little bit for like the medium to experienced seasoned players, maybe not so much for the beginner stuff. But I really think it's fun when you push yourself in those higher ranges of experience playing this game. Trying to find other ways to do things that typically there's a class specifically to do it, and you don't have that at your disposal. Like lockpicking a rogue, cleric here, healing people. We don't have a barbarian beat shield. Like there's other things we could do, but still kick ass and take names and have fun at the same time. So.
Awesome. Well, we're at the 1 hour mark, so we're going to take our first 5-minute break. We will be jumping into the chat. Let's try to get a bunch of heists and stuff going while we're on break, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Thanks for sticking around, guys.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, welcome back.
Hey.
Thanks for sticking with us, everybody. If anyone's new to the stream and they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on, this is Red Dragon Inn. It's our first night doing it. It's a Dungeons and Dragons talk show where we're just going into certain topics and discussing it informally. We do have a show that we put on Tuesdays where 4 players go through our campaign through Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and we have some other stuff that's going to be coming up. But right now we are going through the topic of characters. Thanks for the follow-up. So we went through character creation, we went through group dynamics, and now we're going to phase into common mistakes. So this is a really important topic, I think, for people who are they're wanting to get into D&D, or they haven't been playing as much as they want to. Finding people who have been through the ringer, have been through several different types of games, stuff like that, and getting what they would say, like, don't do this, is hugely helpful. What are some things you guys were told when you were first getting into, that someone had say, hey, don't make this mistake, that helped you? Not everybody got that. But what did anybody get any of those kind of pointers when they were starting out?
Yeah, you would get lots of pointers, but I know for like fact and point for life, didn't listen to them one bit until I experienced it in my game. Then I'm like, should have listened to that.
Like real life.
Yeah. Your parents say, don't do this. You're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. No, seriously, you are. You think you're the special one. It's like, no, I don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm better than that.
You don't understand.
It may have been horrible for you, but it'll work out fine for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, I when we came to this topic about things like, to avoid or not to do, I was really so new to it and not really told much of anything. Just build a character and have fun with it. And I'll let someone else go. I want to hear what someone else.
If you weren't told anything, that's fine. We'll go into like, well, what mistakes have you made? But was anybody warned about anything?
I had to pretty much teach myself how to play D&D, so there wasn't anybody over my shoulder like, so yeah, this is kind of tricky area. You got to watch out here because don't make this mistake, because I did, and whew.
Right. I think the biggest advice that my dad had given me before I was like venturing into it, he's the one who brought me into it at the beginning, was he wanted to let me know that no matter how the game plays, don't ever take anything personally and don't ever question the decision. Try to see if you can go with it and find a different alternative. Because there were so many times when I would still ignore that. When I was early starting, I would get hung up on like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. I'm so good at that. I can do that. But the character just rolled bad or something, or the DM was like, in this particular circumstance, I can't tell you the details why you can't, but you can't. It was that early stage of like trying to like take control of the story, I guess, early on. But that was my mistakes.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah. So well, none of us got really that much advice, and so this is our moment to give advice to people.
Sure.
What are some common mistakes you guys have seen, either running a game and players do stuff and you're like, why the fuck are you doing that? Or as a player yourself, like, oh, this will work great, and then it like totally doesn't work in this type of game. What are some things you guys have seen?
My biggest piece of Probably the most common mistake I see, especially with new players, which is understandable for new players because it is a lot of information, but don't expect the DM to know how to play your character. Like, if you have a question about how something works, then yeah, absolutely ask it, because that's the only way you're going to learn. And it's very confusing at first, but like, I don't know. I've had players where it's like every time they make an attack roll, and I mean, I've played with them for like months. It's like every time they make an attack roll, I'm like, they're like, okay, do I add anything to it? And it's like, yes, you add what you always add. Like, you know, it's good to ask questions. It's okay not to know things, but as long as you're like actively trying to learn and understand what you're doing, because you can't expect the DM to know every single detail about every single class. It's I mean, it's a lot for one person to know about one class, but it's a lot for one person to know everything about all the classes. So.
I mean, Roll20 helps.
Yeah, that's with the compendium.
You know, I'll throw something out real quick.
Yeah.
Not necessarily personally for myself. Maybe this is kind of a blanket statement, and it kind of rolls back into our first topic there. But we've talked a lot about like beginners and things. Maybe a common mistake is that if someone isn't kind of there, maybe to hold your hand or maybe kind of guide you a little bit into, again, everything we already talked about in the character creation side of thing of like who you want to be and what you want to do. But maybe a common mistake that I saw with a friend where they played a character, going back to the clerics, playing a character that, you know, having like spells and things you could do, and I can hit stuff, and maybe just overstepping the boundary of knowledge of what you can do is just a little bit too much to take on. Maybe is a common mistake that people might do, where if they've played another RPG kind of game before, or even like played a video game like this, where it's like, so they have like at least a little bit of brick knowledge to work off of. Maybe that's just a common mistake for beginners. Is I know for myself, and Shadow even texted in the comment there about like beginners should like just try to do fighters, or I did a barbarian. I was like, so what's the class that is the easiest thing to do? And he's like, be a barbarian, you hit stuff, boom, done, perfect.
Right.
I don't even know how to sling spells or anything like that. Again, if someone actually has experience in another game, like a Pathfinder or whatever, I'm just throwing out names, but you know, maybe jumping into Wizard as your first time beginner might not be the best thing to do, because it's just too much. And then,
I did that. When I was 12, I was like, oh my god, and then I was like, oh, too much.
Yeah.
I think Shadow also makes a good point in the chat of saying not to worry about being a heavy role player at first, especially if it's your first couple of sessions. Maybe spend that time just getting used to the mechanics. Obviously, don't sit back, never say a word, and then just roll when it's your turn in combat. But maybe put a little bit more focus on looking through your spells and seeing, all right, this is what I can do, you know, and just figuring out the mechanics of it first, because that's always the most complicated. You can make stuff up about being Finley the halfling, whatever Kyle is.
Right.
Disclaimer board, Steven. Disclaimer board. But continue.
But as far as knowing all the spells bards can do and all those class abilities and bardic inspiration, you know, focus on mastering that first. Then, you know, then you'll already feel more comfortable role playing Finley as an example, because now you know what Finley's capable of.
So I think a lot of the common mistakes for beginners is going to be the role-playing mistakes. Like the book stuff, you can always break the book out, and you know, you want to learn that stuff as fast as you can, because combat can take a long time if you don't know what you're doing. But combat's only a small sliver of the pie of RPG games. A lot of it is the adventuring, and then the conversation between NPCs, and then inter-party character development is really important too. What are some common mistakes you guys see from role-playing that people do wrong?
I don't want to say it's wrong, but I think maybe it's just a common misconception is that roles solve everything. Everybody's, you know, they hear the joke of, oh, the bard rolled nat 20 on a persuasion check and he seduced the dragon. That's a funny joke, but not everything can be seduced. Nat 20s don't always work. just because you tell the guard a convincing lie doesn't mean he's going to believe you.
Mm-hmm.
If the person role plays me out a really good and elaborate story that's believable, I'll give them that. But if they just say, "No, I'm gonna tell the guard I didn't steal that coin purse. I rolled a 22.
Mm-hmm.
I lied. I'm free." No, you're not. You just told him. No, no.
Mm-hmm.
I think
because it's for role playing, it's not ROLL playing, it's ROLE. You know, you're doing a roll. You don't rely on the dice. The dice are there just settle.
That was clever.
Yeah.
That was some wordplay.
Cool. Thanks for the follow. You're
just
there to play
Right.
a character role, not solve problems with the dice. The dice are just to give the answer for mechanical chance, you know. But you are supposed to be a character who's submersing into a world and entering into a relationship with the other party members. And I think that's something that a lot of new people are really apprehensive about, is playing that role and what you do. So a common mistake I see is that, well, can I do this? Asking about things. No, you're in a role. You tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you how, what happens for that. And if we need to go to dice rolls, we will. But you just always, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? That's what a DM should be saying to players who are apprehensive about. What do you want to do? Well, I want to do this. Well, okay, great. Now we have a direction to go. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
Did you get my? I'm sorry, Sean. Did you get my message on Facebook? Because I might want to switch my pet peeve around. Go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, you can switch it. That's fine.
Okay, good. Go ahead, AJ.
All I was going to say is that I think there is this slight little deviation that we're kind of beginning to notice, and that's now because of the way that the year that we're in and how D&D's kind of had a resurgence. But the resurgence of it has happened since there has been other things out there that are MMORPGs, including from things like Skyrim to Fallout. And a lot of the times when it comes to a player making a decision in RP, they typically will default to the version of I lie, I tell the truth, I try to persuade them. They go with the default
wheel, multiple choice,
wheel selection, right? So whenever someone makes a choice, they just say, "Oh, I'm just going to lie to the guard and persuade them." They're kind of still stuck in that mindset where it's I pick an option of what to go for. Or a lot of the times, even some people who are very experienced D&D players will just say, "I make a stealth check," or "I make a persuasion check." It's not quite how it should work. So one of the mistakes that I see is that people and players kind of do this version of they see it more as a video game or more of a board game in a sense, where they assume that I'm following the rules, I'm making dice rolls, and I'm going to try to beat the game. Where what it more likely is that it is technically a role immersive, and the best part about it is that you can do anything you want, and it's great because you can just throw out everything, and whatever you do, the DM is going to tell you what is the most closely tied stat that you can then give your check to see, can I be successful in this?
Right.
And then there's things that you're oh yeah, I know I can be pretty likely to sneak by because I'm a rogue. I'm stealthy. That's got my thing. I got the proficiency. I'm good. But you might try something where it's I might not be a great liar, but maybe this woman likes redheads and she's just flabbergasted with my appearance. Or there could be something along the lines of where you try to get by, you try to sneak, but your sneak is absolute shit. But thankfully the guard doesn't notice because there's a distraction with a pebble being thrown.
Right.
There's so many ways where anything can go, and it shouldn't be based on you trying to hit the dice number, but thinking of what I want to do and let the DM tell you how it's going to happen.
And how I run a game is the more creative you guys can get with that and immerse yourself in the moment and think outside the box. DC, the challenge rating that you would have to beat, I'm very, it slides. If you guys get really into it and think of something and say, wow, that was incredible, you're much more likely to succeed when the role comes up. Not everybody plays that way. That's just my personal thing, is rewarding players for doing a good job, for playing well. Some of the best moments in role-playing games is when you fail, because you have to kind of oh shit, what do we do now? So make sure to let them fail, but to reward good good playing, I think will reinforce that.
Yeah, I think as far as common mistakes go, that's an easy DM one to fall into, is not always rewarding that role play,
Mm-hmm.
because it's hard when you're first there to, how do you reward an abstract concept like role playing? Whereas with the dice, you got the numbers, you got a DC, you know what to sort of base it off of. But yeah, never be afraid to just let players talk their way through something if they, if they want to. If they role play a really convincing intimidation against something like a kobold or a goblin, I'm not even going to make them roll. It's a kobold or a goblin. They're very scared and stupid creatures, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, never be afraid to reward your players for not rolling. And if they demand a roll, roll, and just let them get it out of their system if they absolutely insist.
Like when you guys were going through on the campaign and you got to the tier section with the waterfall and that banshee came out, that was supposed to be a boss fight. How much combat did you guys do in that encounter? 0, and that's not how it was planned.
Yeah.
But
Not with the help of Lilash, I'll tell you that.
But yeah, as a DM, I think a common mistake is like, I designed it to be this way. This is how it needs to go. Empower your players to think outside the box and try different ways. If they want to fight, then obviously you do it if you plan it for a fight. But if they're able to come up with a way, and you know that NPC how it would react, if they present a way where your NPC would de-escalate, then you should let it go that way. In my opinion,
Yeah, never be so rigid in your storytelling or encounter planning that it has to go exactly as you wrote it. Because
I feel like we're branching into. I think there's a really good RDI coming down the stream of DMing, just a whole fucking thing on it.
Yeah, we should do one. Yeah. For the first one in November, we can do that. Actually, we don't have that one planned out yet. Well, another mistake is metagaming. So we'll segue to the next section. So first of all, what is metagaming? Let's define some terminology because it can be very confusing. So let's get your guys' quick definition of what you think metagaming is.
The real beast to be slain in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it's the real dragon. Yeah.
I guess. Go ahead. Yeah, the way I see metagaming, it's knowledge you have that your character doesn't.
Okay.
That's the simplest way I can put it.
Okay. That's one aspect of it. What is some other?
One aspect I know is not justifying your kind of choices, but you're basing it on like your own personal knowledge. So, for instance, like making a person go a certain direction, or they heard that their other players might have like done something, like they stuck a special treasure in their pocket, sort of thing, but your character isn't aware of it. But then for some reason you decide to follow them to their room in hopes to spy. It's like, for what reason are you going to spy on them? They have been like perfectly fine for you. You
breaking the table talk and what your character experiences. Yep.
I've had an entire situation where one person trapped a wizard inside a mirror, brought it back to their location. No one knew about it, yet everyone was by his door listening in to try and see what he was going to do. And I'm like, oh gosh, oh guys, this is kind of breaking it. Went on for 20 minutes before they all finally agreed that was metagaming, and we rewound it back.
What about you two? What is your definition?
It's hard to not sometimes. I mean, just for the sake of even something so simple as, let's say, like locations in a battle. Combat's usually a hard one to not want to. I don't find it hard. I just know that people find it hard in terms of like,
not. You're perfect. Yeah.
There's a bad guy around the corner, and my friend is fighting over that way, but I'm over down around here. Like, how the fuck do I know that he's fighting someone over there or he's dying? Like, that's a really hard one not to, just because, again, from like a video game perspective, we can see it all.
Right.
For the most
third
part.
Person. Yeah.
Like if you're playing at the tabletop with everyone, you can see the map. It's right there, and like your friend's dying around the corner, but you don't know that. That's always a really hard one to just not want to just charge over there and save their life. But in terms of like RP stuff, yeah, it's I don't find it hard not to, honestly. I like not knowing things and then figuring it out. Like even just last night, our game before on Tuesday, my character went down the hallway to the stairs while other things are happening, and I explained the fact that like I'm standing there waiting, like where the hell is everybody, and then come back and they're almost done killing each other. Like what is happening? Like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is fun if you know that it's happening in the moment. It ruins that kind of stuff, in my opinion. It takes away from a whole lot of storyline situations, whether it be combat or role playing wise. Not to give any spoilers.
How would you define metagaming, Kayla?
The best way that I've ever heard it described is whenever you use personal knowledge over character knowledge. And so that applies to like role playing aspects, it applies to like battle aspects, it applies to like table talking. If you're an encounter and you're gonna do something and then another player's like, oh, but why don't you do this instead? And you're like, well, it's a really great idea, but my character, that's not what they're thinking about, so I'm gonna choose this other less optimal option because it's what my character would have done in that moment. And especially with encounters, each round is only 6 seconds, so like it's got to be kind of split decision. But yeah, the best way I ever heard it was player knowledge over character knowledge, because there are things as a player, if you've played multiple games of D&D, that you're going to know about the world. Like if you
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hear about like some creature that turns people into stone, then you're going to be like, oh, well, I'll just use a mirror to like reflect their gaze back at them like they do in like the really old stories, and it always works out well for them. But your character doesn't know that.
Right.
So, I mean, you can always ask, would my character know any type of story about creatures kind of like this, so like specifically looking for weaknesses, and then see if they do. But if they don't, you shouldn't apply that knowledge to that situation, because it's not you in the moment, it's your character. And that's a very hard thing to get used to, but it's also very important.
Yeah, Shadow just put literally something very similar in the chat there, like Kayla was saying about mirrors and stone, and he put in there, you fight trolls, and all of a sudden all the characters know to use fire on it. Like, do they really? And I mean, that's a very straightforward example. Or you fight this thing, and its vulnerabilities, and you fight this thing, and I mean, if you're a dumb barbarian with an 8 intelligence, do you really know that kind of stuff? I mean, maybe your smarter characters you can roll for, like Kayla was saying. Like, do my characters know this? Then I can share it with the group. Like, there's other ways to kind of get it in there without forcing the issue. And if you have, really clever DMs about it, even if there is, let's say, a troll, and everyone starts throwing fire at it, you could be a little tricky. You could be a little deceitful if you think you got some metas in your group, and have it. It's actually cold, loves fire, adds HP to it.
Right.
Fuck around a little bit. Like, why is this thing not dying? It's growing exponentially. Like, what is happening?
Oh, thank you. I have poor circulation and hands. Fire.
like a walking ghost sauna for him. Yeah, he's just like feeling it. All the joys are loosening. But I mean, finagle a little bit and really kind of shook him if you got some metas in there. But yeah, that's a hard one. Again, not to what to do, but you can still try to figure out like, okay, how can I help? How can I get this information out? And but yeah. Again, you don't want to ruin the RP of stuff like that. That makes things not so much fun.
Yeah, well, because one of the exciting parts about D&D is that you get to be somebody else experiencing a world that you don't get to experience, and so it makes it more fun in that instant for you to be like, oh, I know this hidden secret about this monster that we're fighting, so I'm going to do this instead of that. But it makes it a lot more fun for the game as a whole if you just forget everything you know and just pretend like you've never encountered anything like a Hydra before.
Yeah, and I think this kind of ties back to what Andrew mentioned before about seeing RPGs, or Dungeons and Dragons at least, as sort of a video game where it's, you get stuck on a tough boss, you just stop, pause it, pull up a walkthrough, and then you figure out how to beat it. And with all the information that's out there. You can easily pull up the stat block of just about any monster if you're having a tough time and figure out what's wrong with it, or figure out what its vulnerabilities are and attack it that way. But that's that's abusing the meta. I've struggled with it with my ranger because they have favorite enemy. So sometimes you just think, oh yeah, it's a favorite enemy. I automatically get to know what is all what its tricks are. But no, you still have to roll for it. And I've been called out on it, a couple times just before I really got into it. And I was like, oh, it's a zombie. Just hit it with radiant, damage, and it won't get up again. And my DM was like, oh, how do you know what radiant damage is? And how do you know that? Shit, sorry, you're totally right. Forget what I said. Yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into, just pulling up the stat sheet and figuring out. But yeah, always ask what your character would know, like Kayla said.
So when someone is metagaming and people don't say anything and they get away with doing it, I think it kind of perpetuates that to become a habit. So toxicity coming from metagaming, have you guys experienced it, or do you guys got any examples of that, of how it detract from it for everyone else? Like, yeah, for you in the moment, if I metagame something, it might help me out, give me a little bit of edge, but I think overall it does more collateral damage to everyone else. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I've seen it happen where it can quickly ruin the fun of a game. With a friend, DM, he was running Tomb of Horrors. Tomb of Horrors, that notoriously famous mega dungeon that kills everybody before you see the final boss. We happened to have a guy in the group who seemed to just know all the right tips and tricks to avoid the normal pitfalls. Because, not to spoil anything, that dungeon is designed to kill you with every obvious thing that an adventure would check. And this guy somehow knew how to avoid all of it. The DM, we took a break. The DM stepped aside and, asked him. And the guy was like, well, yeah, I was looking at a map, and that guy got instantly booted.
Yep.
It wasn't fun for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tomb of Horrors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say when someone's like checking for traps, like, sounds like Tomb of Horrors. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But oh my god, you got to meta to beat it.
Yeah, we were just happy we found the boss at the end. That was the farthest he'd taken any group.
Yeah. There certainly is a lot more times when I've had people doing meta. Most of the time, the most common time I've seen it is when people don't realize they're doing a meta. Where there are times, like as you said, like for instance, she's like, how do you know that radiant damage is that zombie? You wouldn't, sort of thing. And there are other instances where you would see like a certain magic effect or something like that. One of my biggest ones, which people don't realize, but is actually something that should be like done a lot more often, is when someone puts out an illusion, a disguise, or something like that. I mean, for the most part, you have to make a check. I mean, if you don't literally look at it to inspect it, you believe it right away. So there shouldn't be this kind of notion that you can easily like just overlook a wizard's like if some wizard like in your party says in the game like I cast minor illusion, like they say if the wizard casts this and he tries to bring out like some kind of crazy looking deadly thing in front of you, it's like unless you succeed on the check, you have to believe it. You have to believe it's real. I mean, at the same time, it's like a player going, holy fuck, there's this ball of fire in front of me. I can't put my hand through it because I think it's going to burn me.
Right.
Sort of thing. So it's that sense, because that will happen a lot of the times when people throw things in the rolls and people are telling you, this is the spell I'm using, but you guys don't necessarily know how it's working. So you kind of have to believe the lie.
Right.
And that's why
you're really good at that actually during our game. Is something will be going on and Rin wouldn't know what the hell's going on, like doesn't understand it because he's very book smart but not street smart. And that's something I've noticed with how you play your character. You do really, really well in that category with separating the player character knowledge, and it ends up being a fun, more, I almost said funner, more
Funner's
more
good.
fun.
Funner.
Yeah,
Funner's great.
it's more fun for everyone else when you play that ignorance because your character is ignorant of it. It just adds another layer to the roleplay onion, I guess.
Yeah, and the other one, of course, which you even know too as a DM, which is the most common one we'll ever come up with players. If someone is lying or needing to kind of throw out like a deceit or something like that, the DM has to say, roll a deception or persuasion, but technically whatever they pick, especially on Roll20, it's right there. And it's so a lot of the times people have to then, when you get to that stage where an obvious lie or an obvious deceit is placed in front of you, and even though you as the player know it's a lie, again, like, where were you off to? Oh, I was just fishing up some fish. They rolled like a nat 20 on their deception. You're like, yeah, you were out fishing. That's great.
Yeah.
I know nothing else. It's just,
Good time.
Yeah.
I think, the easiest, you can catch it real easy when somebody's metagaming, if you're the DM, especially if they do something their character wouldn't do. And that's the suckiest thing when you're, when you get really invested in your character and then you're like, God, this is going to kill him, but I have to make this choice because that's what he'd do. Your paladin, he's going to stand up to the dragon. Start rolling up your backup character because for him to run now is so out of character. You're just avoiding a trap or not protecting a friend, doing things out of character because it'll save you, but your character wouldn't do it. I think that's one of the more egregious forms of it.
Well, I mean, it definitely ties into what I'm switching my pet peeve around for. I have something else.
Peeves. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
but I switched it over because I wanted to actually bring that same kind of concept over into this conversation, and I have something else to pet peeve on.
Yeah, so let's do top 5. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not jumping into that. I'm taking my pet peeve and moving it over here into this conversation. I have something else like a pet peeve.
Okay.
But yeah, like what Steven was saying is like metagaming in terms of like that's what my character would do. Kind of the other side of the tracks. Like you went down to paladin side of righteousness, and there's a dragon. Like I gotta fucking go. I don't know what else to do. The metagaming side is on more like I think that's actually more of a positive because you're playing your character in terms of like if that's how you made him to be as the righteous paladin and fuck dragons. Well then I guess that's what I gotta go do now. But on the flip side of that, and this is a really gray area in my perspective in terms of like you could really RP it positively. I'll use your paladin idea as a more positive side of that conversation. That's what my character would do. But there's also the negative side of that's what my character would do on the negative side of the metagaming. With your paladin idea, it's actually more the positive. If there was a positive metagame, I guess, is you're role playing your character. Like that's, running away that doesn't make any sense. But on the negative side of like, that's what my character would do is all those negative, like Sean said, toxicity kind of things where you're doing it to an NPC, you're doing it to another party member, like you're doing it just to be a dick, like because that's what my character would do. Like that's the I think that's like kind of the worst kind of metagaming. Like I can let things slide in terms of like if I'm DMing and my character, there's someone dying around the corner and they just so happen to run over and help them. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll roll for it. But if you're purposely doing something, because that's what my character would do. Like, there's a fence that you walk and you hopped over to the mega metagaming side of life in terms of that gray area. You jump right over into the black in terms of
the mega meta.
The mega meta. The mega meta mind. The mega meta. But I think all that was making sense what I just said.
Okay.
It's just one of those things where it just doesn't. It's not needed. I mean, what part is that fun for anyone? Like, I don't understand how anyone would want to do that purposely. Negatively, that's what my character would do is go stab the king in the neck. No, would he though? Like, why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like there's a certain threshold I think of like, no, just and I've witnessed that in some of my own personal characters, like really having to not only my knowledge of what I know and things, but also just not jumping full head on heels of like this is what my character would do because so I have to do it. Like there is that fine gray area where you can live comfortably and still have a really fun time and not ruin it for yourself or other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Kayla.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
Can
go
do it in
Kyle.
the
What
band
more do
voice,
we
though.
need than a yeah?
I think
Yeah,
an
go ahead.
interesting concept Kyle brought up was like thinking of something as positive metagaming, where I think there is some positive forms of metagaming, like over the table talk. If you're helping out a new player, saying, "Hey, this is what your character can do," your
Right.
character would know that, but you as the person, you're just helping them out. That's technically metagaming, but you're also helping them. So long as you're not the person who says, "You're a cleric, you need to heal. That's all you do." That's just being a dick.
Right.
But yeah,
Don't be a
if
dick.
somebody's like,
Yeah.
if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm a druid. What can I do?" "Oh, well, you could cast this spell, or you could turn into a squirrel and get the
Oh,
fuck
no.
out of here if that's what you want to do."
The player should never be a druid in the first place, because anyone who asks that question, the answers are too many.
Yes.
Mm.
I'm a druid. What can I do?
I like-
What can you do? I mean,
You can
I
roll
like
a different
how
character.
the-
Yeah. That's what you can do.
I like
you could
I
not
like how
conjure with
Steven's
the
go-to
beams.
character
That'd be a start.
was-
Don't do that.
I like how Steven's go-to character for a druid was a squirrel. That makes me super happy because I played a squirrel character before. So
I love the fact that we had
PvP and squirrels are like very hand in hand for me right now. But
I
anyway,
love the fact that we had Brian the cleric who had an army of squirrels with soap operas.
Yeah, that was really funny.
He really fell into his character
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
end.
great.
I loved it.
No, explain what are your feelings? Yeah, like Dr.
Yeah.
Phil and the
I mean, that was
squirrels.
great because that was like, God, that was like, what, 8 sessions in where he came up with that? Like,
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
I mean, I don't think he started thinking his character was going to be a person who likes to talk to squirrels to resolve their issues.
Not at all.
Dr. Squirrel Phil.
All right, let's switch over to our top 5. So pet peeves. So we'll go around the table and say our top 1.
Oh, we're just starting. Do you want us to elaborate, or just saying what it is, and then we'll talk more about it?
Yeah, say what it is, and then you elaborate, and then we'll comment on how wrong you are. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm usually very,
think that's
very
a
wrong,
peeve?
so I'm actually pretty comfortable in this situation.
good setup, Sean. Good
Thank
setup, bud.
All right. Well, I've been talking, so I'll keep talking.
Yeah, you're good.
My biggest pet peeve is the intentional min-maxing of characters. It's super annoying to just watch a person pick, these are where my stats are going, this is the race I'm doing, this is the background I want, all for the sake of maximizing what they can do combat-wise. I'm all for people wanting to make the best character they can. Sometimes making a quirky character, is fun if you don't, you don't always have to pick the ideal things. I've done the half-orc monk. That's not ideal for that class, but he was a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm picking half-elf because I'm going warlock, and that +2 is the best for it, and then I can use my skills to get this. And you're less making a character and more trying to win a game.
Okay.
That kind of I think, leads into the one I had for a pet peeve, I think.
I planned it that way.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it's-
think
He's on point.
questioning, was that
He's
my
on
pet peeve?
point.
Or did I have a different one?
Well, before you get into yours, let's kind of let people unpack that a little bit if they want to.
Oh, sure, yes.
I mean, I think there's a time and a place for it. If you're gonna run, and again, this actually goes back to something you said earlier. With setting expectations and stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're playing like a murder hobo setup where you're just gonna go around fight stuff, I mean, what better way to min max the character
Right.
is to go down and
Right.
you want to just.
That is a good
The
time
whole
to do it.
idea of the campaign is combat. Like that's just is what it is. But I would agree when it comes to and this even works all the way back in character creation that we talked about earlier. But it's one of those things where min-maxing is again. There's like that gray area. It's like you don't want your character to be just bad at what they do, but you still want them. There is that fine line between. If they're amazing, I guess they're amazing. If that's the way the dice rolled the stats, kind of thing. But I agree where you kind of want to have that character concept first, and almost one of the last things you do is roll the dice, right? Like if you really want to make a genuine character, that might be one of the last things that you do after you come up with a race, come up with a class, do the backstory, flesh out a little bit of background, and it's like, okay, I think I have everything, and then maybe roll the dice and see, because if you roll the dice first, it's like, well, I was gonna play like you said, like a half elf warlock because of the +2 charisma, but I don't really have that great of a charisma, so maybe I'll just do the barbarian because I could do a strength now. Like, you totally change your character just because the dice rolls. Like, that's a little crazy. So that fits, I think, into that min max conversation.
And I've definitely min maxed before when it comes to like one shots or just small campaigns where I didn't need to put a whole lot of background into it. Like we talked about the Tomb of Horrors. We ran that as a marathon, 12-hour session. So I just rolled up, a quick fighter.
Yeah.
It was awful. I don't recommend it. But like I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I wanted to be a big sword and board, heavy hitter fighter. So I went, Dragonborn, +2 strength, +1 charisma. There we go. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm. Like with our PvP tournament we're going to be doing, that's the perfect place to min-max. Because we're trying to see who's the best class for a PvP arena. So, which we are going to be having on the channel. But there's a time and place for it. But go ahead, Kayla.
I think that min-maxing really becomes a problem when you let it get in the way of your character. I mean, it kind of depends on like what campaign you're wanting to run. Like Carl said, if you're just running a murder hobo, then the idea is to min-max. But most campaigns, this is going to sound really cheesy, D&D isn't just a game, it's an experience. Like it's not about just winning or losing, it's about being in a world and like finding all these different things out. It's about creating a story, and you're going to be able to create a better story if you don't min-max. Like if you have a character that's just, whatever it turns out to be, if you don't like handpick, oh, this class pairs best with this race, it's more fun, I think, to not min-max. And I think that if you make the choice not to min-max, it's less frustrating when you encounter a situation where you don't win. Because if you min-max, you're going into the game thinking, okay, this guy's built to win. He's going to win at everything. He's a winner. And if he loses, I have lost. And this whole thing is just going to waste of time and I'm a failure, which is not what D&D is about at all.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, especially with that, you said min-maxing and all that. It definitely leads to the whole thing where a person has like this belief that it should be this perfect kind of setup. And if the setup ever fails or has problems, I see people just fall away from that immediately and want to roam new characters. They want to try something else. They think that it's like, oh, I'm not having fun with that, perfect build. Let me try making a second perfect build. And it's the biggest issue, as I like previously mentioned. It's like you're not trying to create a hero. You're trying to create a character. You're trying to create something that's believable and real, and something that could be fun and have an enjoyment to kind of put yourself in their shoes, sort of thing, or something that you can relate to. I mean, like if you have your own personal flaws, or you've known someone who has these flaws, you could like, I wonder what it would be like if they did something. It's a great way to do that, as opposed to kind of thinking you've made the perfect build and then getting disappointed when it doesn't work. Where it's much better to feel so surprised and happy that it's like, oh my god, my little misfit succeeded.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna min max, go for the full cheese build of Halfling, Bountiful Luck, Lucky Feet, Divine Soul Sorcerer for Favored by the Gods, and Divination Wizard for Court. Never fail. You never fail to roll again. You just get to do whatever you want. If you're gonna do it, go whole ham.
Well, and kind of going off of just, I think also you can ride that wave of, if you have like just the unfocused vision of what you want a character to be, you can still kind of min-max your character in terms of like, let's say your concept was, I've just never played a monk before, right? And I want to play one, so it's one of those things where maybe you have like a basic concept. I know before I said, get everything done and then roll your dice, but even if you don't have that, even if you only just have like a baseline of like, I want to play a monk, like I want to be a small monk, like what goes really good with that? Maybe just give yourself a little bit of direction, because you can start to get into the area of, all right, well, what's the best monk to have? Well, tabaxis have all this movement, they can do these things, or moving along again, having that conversation. But I think you can still, I mean, with HotA, what was really cool, if I'm not mistaken, I think we rolled dice last, right? I mean, we had
Yep.
almost everything.
A couple hours of who was your
Yeah,
character so before we even did stats. Yep.
Right. And, it's been a pleasure to play Finley in terms of, I got so engrossed in thinking about who I wanted to be and what I wanted his character to be. It was totally different than other characters that I had made in terms of that max gray area of I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but all right, well, while I'm thinking about it, I'll roll stats in the meantime. Ooh, okay, cool. This will work. And then finishing, it was actually really the first time I had fleshed out the guy and then stats. And actually, I kind of like it the best in terms of if we're really going into the character campaign adventure story, if you dive into who you want to be.
And some anti-min-max things that we implemented for the character creation was, after you guys even rolled the stats, we went through one character at a time, one skill at a time. Athletics, acrobatics, every arcana, every single one of them, and we did D6s, D4, D8 modifiers, positive or negative, based on your backstory. And so we brought up, Finley, in acrobatics based on your, are you acrobatic or not? Not based off of your first stat. No. So we gave you a negative modifier. So it further customized it to where your character is going to roll how your character is instead of what would be best in situations. So
and that's the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of modifying modifiers, that was actually something that I didn't even know one you could do, and two, I really enjoyed. And that was, I think, before we even rolled stats, right? I think stats was the last thing that we did in terms of numbers.
I don't remember.
I think we did it after the stats.
Yeah, I think it was after stats.
Same time, right around the
same
after.
Same time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that was really cool to do that.
All right, let's go into Andrew's pet peeve, and then we'll take our last break.
Okay. So I remember now. I remember what it was.
Okay.
It's not that one. It was the pet peeve of that when players make a character that has in its own nature or intent to be conflicting with the party members. So people who would, for instance, make characters that have, let's say, initial racism towards certain particular races, and let's say one of those races is in your party. And so right there, you're just forcing the party to kind of bash heads at the start. Other times is when you will do a lot of intentional or very consistent or deliberate hindering the party. So rogues that might be kleptomaniacs, for instance, they will
stealing from other party members,
pockets like crazy. Yeah. But it's at the same time you have to imagine that there's some kind of internal little man that's telling us yes, I know you really want to, but better not do it here. Because most people have that sense of self-preservation of, if I do this, I'm going to kind of screw myself over worse off than I usually do. But maybe if there's a situation where it's really going to test your character's strain to stop and hold their addiction or their behavior, then you can maybe make a roll about it or something. Because if you think one of the great examples was Critical Role with not steals like a booger, but literally very minimally will steal from the party members. The only one time is when it was kind of character developing, when it was the scroll. That's it. That was the only time she was I'm going to steal from the party specifically because there's enough of a reason for me to kind of go past the whole I'm willing to risk hurting my relationship for that one goal, which is great because that's a story, that's a development. But someone who just constantly says, yeah, I'm going to, the party has split the gold between everyone. I'm going to go and steal 50 gold from each person's pocket just because, there's no real rhyme or reason. And it's just more because of one of those things where it's I'm a sneaky rogue, or a bard that says, oh, I'm such a persuasive little fucker that I'm going to make you give it to me because I'm going to flirt with you until you hand over all your worldly possessions.
That kind of goes into the what characters, this is what my character would do that I had mentioned a little bit before. That's kind of what you're saying with that a little bit in terms of.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's I think it's better for one of those extremer versions. If there's a really it's hard to pass up kind of moment.
Well, we went over that before you guys made your characters because we talked about what you guys want as a group, what are the rules for the group. What are some things you guys remember me saying to you guys about like morality for doing things against party members?
I don't remember a thing.
Yeah, you weren't
What was?
there.
I'm sorry. Yeah. What was the question? I'm sorry, I was typing. Go
No,
ahead,
it's okay.
Melissa.
So with what AJ was talking about doing things to fellow party members, what was some things that I went over with you guys about my expectations for you guys against other party members? Do you guys remember?
If I'm not mistaken, it was a definite no in terms of no. Like
Mm-hmm.
don't fucking do that. Like if it leads to um it has to have a really good reason behind it. Like
Mm-hmm.
the example AJ gave with the scroll was a thematic storyline thing, and not
Mm-hmm.
a just because. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually rolled over into PvP with other players. Like it has to be a really fucking explained reason for, because that's one. It's honest. I mean, it's just not progressing story forward in terms of like a just because doesn't do anything. But
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, it's like a 99% no, and
Mm-hmm.
that 1% better have a really good fucking reason for it.
Because we had two instances of where a command was given to a player in the party, and which made sense to the characters at the time, but then afterwards during the debrief, when it was players talking to other players about how it went, um, the player wasn't okay with that. It took away his fun because he specifically didn't want to do something because his character didn't want to, and then they forced him to. Um, so, uh, it was a fixable moment. But yeah, doing other things against other party members can definitely take the fun out of the game for other people.
Which, I mean,
Yeah, go ahead. You're good.
I am all for party conflict because like it makes the game fun and like it really brings out a lot of good like character interaction and character development and like bonding as a group. But at the same time, you shouldn't be intentionally seeking out ways to disrupt the party.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it comes up because people are going to clash. But then as a party, you have to work together to kind of be like, okay, how do we fix this so that we can keep working together because we work well as a unit? It's just our personalities clash. But you shouldn't be like looking out ways like, oh, I know that this character is super attached to this necklace, so I'm going to steal it from them and then sell it. Just because I'm a rogue and I like money and I think it looks pricey.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a good enough reason. Like you have to think about it in the sense that if you were a person actually traveling with these people, you would have to maintain some type of positive relationship. Like you couldn't just go around fucking all of them over and expect nothing bad to happen to you in return.
Right. And when we were talking about alignment at the very beginning too, was this is intended for you guys to be the good guys, but I am okay with if you guys want to be an evil character, but you're going to be evil to the world, not to the party. So we'll have to figure out ways for why would a good and evil person be traveling together. But you can find ways to do that, but it's really, really important that you be evil to the NPCs, not to your teammates, because even like Sith Lords in Star Wars, they have other people around them that they keep alive because they need people to see how evil they are and acknowledge it and live in fear. Like you can't just destroy everything because you're evil, because it's not fun for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I remember that. That was the very beginning.
Does anybody got anything else to add to his pet peeve?
I feel like I did, but now I forgot it.
Okay. All right, we will go on our last break. When we come back, we'll do the last 3 of the top 5 pet peeves, and then we will go into open discussion where we can talk about anything, but we're going to kind of dogpile that on with the viewer Q&A. So we'll talk about stuff, just whatever we want to that's not scheduled, but then you guys will be able to just blast things in the chat that you think is relevant, or questions for us about the channel, about us personally, or their characters, stuff like that. Or you guys can just bring up discussion topics for just us to talk about. And then at the very end, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do some HotA Point giveaways. So to do that, you'll do exclamation point raffle, but don't do that until until it opens, because it won't get you in until then. But we'll see you guys in about 5 minutes. Thanks for sticking around. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We have 3 more top 5s to go through, and then we'll open it up to open discussion and viewer Q&A. And don't forget, at the end, stick around to the end because we're going to be giving away some HotA points. And if we get enough chatter, we might give away some HotA tokens. So we have HotA tokens that all of our players have. It's got the HotA symbol and the symbol of the divinity on it. So it depends on how active the chat is. We may do a token giveaway as well. So Kyle, what's your top pet peeve? To change.
All right. So, I had a pet peeve written down, and from the way the conversations were going, I thought it'd be best to throw it in with the conversation. So I switched my pet peeve to something else. It actually kind of does tie into a little bit of a topic, but a little bit different, and we didn't bring it up, so I figured I'd bring it up now. I have a pet peeve where there's characters who do everything, fucking everything, right? And they're just amazing at all of it. And the reason I say that, in the brass taxes of D&D, it's supposed to be a fun group game that we're playing together. And one of the things that make things really fun is that when people have that thing that makes them special. We talked about rogues with doors and locks and things, and clerics are the healers, and druids talk to trees and shit. Whatever it is. I'm broad stroking here, but
stroking.
I think.
Just keep in mind, folks, the bard with jacks of all trades is letting you know he doesn't like it when people are good at everything.
And to be honest, it's one of those things where I try even in our game not to intervene in everything. I like it for everyone to have their moment to be. I'm not gonna go be the badass. I'm not gonna go and jump in front of the big 6 foot tall 7 guy and try to fight him. I might try that now, but
I'm gonna say you are
what I am
happening.
what my stats tell me I can do. It's I just like the dynamic where everyone contributes maybe 1 or 2 ways, and when you have that one character who just does everything amazing, it's why are we even playing? I guess I'll just watch you do everything, I guess, and I'll participate in combat when it happens. So, very broad stroker, whatever. Play all, do all characters.
I'll broad stroke you any day, Kyle. Any day.
That's my boy. That's my boy.
That's why I keep hanging out with you guys.
The bromance is real.
I agree with you.
I think bromance is real. But anyway, you guys, can certainly open up on that. But I just thought, I don't know if anyone's experienced it personally or, whatever, or heard of it.
Yeah, usually one of the bigger ones I see is when someone takes the lead all the time, as in they're the planner, they're the decision maker, they're the ones that forces all the direction.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of engaging other players or trying to balance out the things, they're usually the ones that are the again, as you said, it's why am I here playing when you're just taking it all, doing it all.
Mm-hmm.
Going all which way you want.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Like I say, I've definitely experienced it as a player of somebody else taking that role, and it got so bad to a point where I hate to admit this, but there was times I just took 5-minute break to go get water and re-up on everything, and that person's still talking. They're still doing all the roles, and it's all right, I guess I'm just a passive player now in this game, and yeah, it's a quick way to suck out all the fun.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and those players seem to they fall into a lot of the pet peeves or mistakes of power gaming, metagaming, of just trying to win D&D instead of experience it.
Yeah, because I like how Sean gave us negatives on our modifiers.
Mm-hmm.
All of our skills, everyone except Rin has a -10 in history, so it's no hope. I've seen so many negatives on that roll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Sean had me do a history check one time. I was why? Why am I doing it? I didn't ask for one. I think I might have asked the question. But he's well, do a history check. I'm okay, I don't know anything.
I don't know.
I'll make the decision for you.
At that point, you're not rolling to see how much you know. You're rolling to see how little you know.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. So it's just one of those things that as we were having our conversation, I did kind of just think of it's just one of it's not fun. It's just one person. It's again gray area of having the leader of the group take us to go do stuff. Like someone just make a decision, we go do it.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of maybe plays a little bit into it, but I'm more or less talking about like specific like role playing or mechanical aspects where this is actually a good place for this character to shine or this one.
Mm-hmm.
But the end all get all guy goes and does it, and it's like, okay, fine, I guess. Cool.
Okay.
Anyway, Kayla, what do you have to win on the pet peeve?
Oh, you want me to do my pet peeve now?
No. So what do you have to throw in on my pet peeve? I don't care what yours
Oh.
is.
Yeah, the spotlight's still on Kyle.
Sorry, that's why I was so thrown off. I was like, oh, he's never cared before.
Just think about it.
Unless he's Finley.
True.
When he's Finley, he
That's
loves
not
you.
true, Kayla.
It's okay. You shut it down real quick, so the hope was gone. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that D&D is a group game. Like you can have solo campaigns and stuff, and I mean, those never really last long because people just get bored with it because it's not fun when you're the only one going up against all these different challenges. Even if you're really good at it, I mean, it's not fun. It's more fun to do it as a group together. And, as a group together, like there are going to be different strengths and weaknesses, and as a player it's important to realize, okay, this person's really good at doing this, and even though I'm also good at doing this, I'm going to let them have control over this kind of area, like the negotiations and the bargaining and things like that, because I can handle this area that they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of player balance needs to be a little bit meta, because at that point as a player you do need to kind of pull back your character a little bit from I guess invading other areas that other characters really shine in, because every person playing D&D wants a moment to shine.
Mm-hmm.
And like they want to be able to be like, oh, I can do this thing really, really well, and even though I can't hit a monster to save my life, at least I can get us a really good deal on health potions.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like little things like that, like being able to be part of a party is what D&D is all about. And if there's just one person leading the party, like you said, there's no point in playing at that point. It's just sitting back and watching somebody else create your story, which is very frustrating.
It brings up.
And I think.
Oh no, go ahead.
I think it's also good as a DM to never be afraid to tell somebody they can't do something. If you have somebody who is trying to take over that hard, give them hard boundaries. Say you're whatever your background is, you're a noble, but you're like, I'm gonna pick this lock. I have really good dex and I have sleight of hand. As DM, ask them, has your character ever in their life even seen a pair of lock picks? No, you can't pick a lock. You've never seen it before. Let somebody else do something. Sure, that's a little ham-fisted of an example, but just off the top of the head, it's a way to sort of stop, hopefully stop that sort of behavior and let them know, like, all right, other people can do things. I guess I'll do fine.
Right.
And
go ahead.
Oh, like kind of along those lines, like whenever I do something for my players, like my players' characters are all good at different things, and so the DC for a certain character to complete a challenge is going to be higher or lower based on their background. So like we have a rogue. I mean, obviously they're going to be able to pick locks way easier than the druid. I mean, the druid can still try, and it might still happen, but the DC is going to be a lot higher. And I mean, sometimes there are going to be really hard locks to pick, so there's just no chance that anyone but the rogue is going to be able to do it.
Unless of course they're an urchin. It could have been an urchin background.
What's that?
Oh, I said unless they were an urchin background.
Oh,
well,
right.
Yeah.
Street urchins have sleight of hand, and they can do lots.
Shut up, Andrew.
Yeah, Shadow in the chat said just because you have a high charisma doesn't mean you know how to lie.
Exactly.
That's a pretty good point.
I mean, you could be the worst poker player because every lie is like, yeah.
Right. Yeah, some kind of tell. So with sharing the spotlight, how much should I have you guys talk about this and me talk about it before we even began, and even our first probably 4 games? Do you guys remember all that?
Are we on to your pet peeve or?
No, no,
no.
we were just talking about the stuff and it kind of
Yeah, like sharing the spotlight.
sharing the spotlight. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. With all of our conversation, like I don't even know how many we had.
We've gone over that extensively,
Mhm.
in my opinion, in terms of recognizing both sides of the tracks, in terms of realizing when it's yours and take it and run with it, and acknowledge it and really get in, and also recognize when it's someone else's, and not only recognize but don't overstep and let them own it as well. Like really having that good balance of awareness in the game itself.
Mhm.
We talked about that numerous times,
Mhm.
which is a good thing, a good session zero thing to talk about.
Even for just the format of this show, I know our discussion, you emphasized being able to share the spotlight with people.
Mhm.
Whether it's this or D&D, it's important to know there are 3 to 4 to 5 other players there. It's not your game.
Mhm.
You're a part of it.
Mhm. And not only, so there's two folds to it. Recognizing when you're in the spotlight. Some people are, kind of hesitant to go with it. Like if you're in the spotlight, take your moment, and everyone should let them do it. But at the same time too, if you recognize someone's in the spotlight, just take a step back and just enjoy it. Like I really enjoy watching Kyle physically, when other people step in the spotlight, because he will literally just sit back and he'll like just, this isn't my time, and he'll just like totally get enthralled in the moment and just give that respect to the other player to let them have that. And that just makes people want to let you have your spotlight when it comes around. It's a definite give and take.
Right. I mean, we're all here not only for the gameplay, but I love watching my guys do stuff,
Mhm.
and what, like, especially if I'm not involved with it. I mean, I get to be a viewer just like everyone
Mhm.
else, and
Like when
I
Chris
know
just
last
ran
night.
and jumped over the lava onto the pillar. We're like, all right, you have your moment, dude.
Oh
That's how
boy.
you
This is
getting
where we're
back,
at.
but good
Okay.
luck.
And I'd even made mention about that before in one of our decompressions, about like, even if I'm not actively like watching, if I am writing something down, I'm still very actively listening. Like even last night, it might not have looked like I was paying attention because I was writing the whole time, but
Mhm.
there was a reason for it. I had a
Mhm.
sweet picture. Like it's like I really do try to um you know let my homeboys do their thing, and I like to be a viewer just as much as anything. So I like to step back and
Mhm.
see what's happening.
Yeah, I've tried to encourage one DM I play with to work on those moments. I know as a DM, you want to feel like everybody's included all the time and they're all having fun, but you got to have those character moments. Otherwise, you have to recognize people. Otherwise, nobody's getting recognized. One of the things he said was, "I can't, that can't be fun to sit around and watch, somebody else talk." I was like, "No, that's awesome. If I could just sit back, 5-10 minutes at a time and watch this character have a very important moment for that character, that's awesome. That's why I'm playing this game." You know,
Mhm.
if I can learn something about our, dwarf cleric, he lost his son. That's what put him on this adventure. That's a huge piece of information to know,
Mhm.
and it's exciting to learn that. For us all to just be treated as equals, it's nice. We're all on the same playing field, but then we never learn anything about each other because nobody's getting their own moment to stand out.
Yeah, we've kind of dubbed it, campfire moments. And it's probably the favorite moments for all four of our players. They're always just waiting for that next campfire moment because they get to learn about each other, and we purposefully structure it to where they actually don't know that much about each other's backstories, and they went very, very extensively, into where they've been and what they've done in a lot of details, and we purposefully are having them not know it, so that way when those campfire moments come up, they can choose how much they want to let them in about, and it's slowly making them build a relationship just like it is in real life. I mean, when you meet somebody for the first time and you do a couple things, there's a lot of secrets and there's a lot of things that you've done and places you've been and people you know that they have no clue. So why would you do it just because it's a game? So we did like one-on-ones where the devs would meet with the players and they would work on that together. And all right, so nobody knows any of this. We're not going to tell them. You get to pick when you tell them. And how's that been for you two going through? It's hard to not just spill the beans all the time, I know, but you're muted.
He's muted.
I am?
Oh, no, there you are.
Now you're not.
No, it's just it's hard to keep a secret.
You're really quiet.
I'm really quiet. Oh my god. Am I better now?
You're okay. You just go ahead.
Okay. It might have been my leg. I had my leg right here, which is kind of right in between the mic.
You sound better now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it might have been the leg. No, I just said it's really hard to keep a secret. It's really hard to hold your story back to the other players because in real life or in the real life, you would know that in your character's life, you probably wouldn't be like an open book so much. But it's good. It's good because it also keeps something interesting to share every time. So it's not like everything gets thrown out all there. And it's like, now what?
No, I mean, I look forward to those moments, as you mentioned. I mean, we have kind of caught ourselves in a pickle here, there, and everywhere for the last couple days of adventuring, where we haven't really had a moment to have a campfire moment. But we not to give anything away from the story, but we had a really long run of something happening, and we were all really looking forward to a breath of fresh air / relief of actually getting, and we did. Like, it was awesome to get to interact and actually it was definitely more maybe like 60-40 combat story, and then 40 was RP stuff, and it was nice to flip that for a little bit. So I look forward to those moments where we can delve into each other a little bit more.
But Sean, tell us, what is your pet peeve?
My pet peeve.
What's your pet peeve, John?
I have many, and I'm sure you guys have pet peeves about me running your game, but one of my biggest pet peeves is going to be with the stat attributes and people implying things when my own personal play style, if I'm playing a character, for example, like an intelligence score of 8, someone will, a lot of players will just play that character as a dumbass or as the town joke when when they got an 8. The first thing is, you're not just a commoner, you're an adventuring person, so you're going to be probably smarter than the average person. So if it's a common knowledge thing, someone with an 8 score, I think, would know at least of it for the most part. I think that if you're going to play an unintelligent character, the opposite of Rin. I
was just adjusting.
No, your character is very intelligent.
These were kind of bugging me. So
if you're gonna play an unintelligent character, it should be because you want to play one, or it's because of the character you have developed, not because it's an 8 score. Does that make sense? So I mean, I think if you had even a 10 or an 11, if you still want to play your character as an idiot, that's fine, but I hate the stigma of 8 intelligence, you don't know anything, because it's just, that number is to make a modifier that goes onto a d20 roll. Your maximum isn't as high as somebody, but you could still roll a 17, 18, 19, 20 on a dice, you know what I mean? So you can still do intelligent feats, so you couldn't be a simpleton. Does that make sense to me? To me, that's how I view that. And seeing people who just assume that, that stigma, that is a huge pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, I can, from personal experience, I've played the 8 intelligence idiot character, but he wasn't so dumb he didn't know how to do anything. He was a half-orc monk, and, he was mostly just, he knew how to punch things, and that's what he did. So, we made the joke one time, some of the well, Mash, what do you think? Huh, Mash thing, you make good joke.
Right.
But there was, we found this riddle written in Dwarvish. Somehow nobody in our party spoke or read Dwarvish, but if you check the book, the Orcish script is in Dwarvish.
Mm-hmm.
So the DM said, all right, you can technically read it, you can try and piece it together, give me an intelligence check. Nat 20.
Mm-hmm.
Orc figured out the riddle. Well, he read the riddle out loud to the group, and then they figured it out.
Mm.
But yeah, I wasn't gonna say no. 8 intelligence. He can't read.
Right.
It was all right. Make your roll. And Mash think it say this, and then then we figured it out. But yeah, it's
like you playing a simpleton character, I think, is great. I mean, it adds a lot of comedy too to an adventure. It can be really fun to play, but I don't think playing that because you put an 8, like you don't have to be that because you have an 8.
Yeah, I wish I could remember where I found it, but there was this list I saw of like, here's every stat you have, and here's a good way to sort of gauge how your character would be based on the score you got. So like for intelligence, 10 was you're about average intelligence. 8 was you understand basic concepts and you have common sense, but long-term plans might be a little beyond you. So it's like, yeah, you're not very smart, you don't really plan things ahead, but you know how to put your pants on. You're not just taking dumps in the middle of the street like an idiot.
Right.
Build off on that for intelligence based and things like that. I've always
You're really quiet again.
Oh no, Mike, why are you hating me so?
We're just gonna have to
Michael.
Better now? Am I here?
Just keep going, yeah.
Am I going? Do you love me now?
That got weird.
Okay, am I
good? Just speak louder and you should be fine.
All right. Speaking with more projection to the snowball, I see that the characters with intelligence usually is a bit more about factoids and knowledge and the depth of how much you can keep on memory without having to refer back to like a Google or a dictionary or something like that.
Okay.
One of the custom home rules that I've had and I love to now employ after using it was anyone who had an intelligence below a 10, one of the things is that so many times a character would have this thing where it's like, I know Common, Draconic, and Sylvan, or blah, blah, blah. There'd be like people would know so many languages, but if your intelligence was below a 10, you could speak and understand it verbally, but you couldn't write it or you couldn't read it. Okay. Because your intelligence was below at that point. It's like you had enough wisdom, you had enough common sense to get a lingo and to talk to someone and kind of, get enough of a, like, you understand me, I understand you, but I'm just not so grammatically accurate. And if I see a sentence structure, I'm like, is it past tense? Is it previous tense? What's the way that it laid out? There's that like little nuance of knowing precisely everything versus like, I can get by with what I need to know. I can ask the person where the hell the bathroom is and not, have to piss myself. I'm good.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that too, because if you could speak multiple languages, thanks for the follow. You're obviously intelligent enough to learn and retain knowledge. Even if you couldn't write it, you know what I mean? Like, how dumb can you really be if you can speak multiple languages? Yeah. I mean, I only speak one. I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, and I don't remember any of it. Like, I can listen to people speaking Spanish and won't catch a couple words, maybe. You know what I mean? And
¿Dónde está el biblioteca?
The most common repeated phrase.
So, yeah. So what else do you guys think about that? It's definitely opinion on that, but
no, it's a good thing to bring up. It's one of those things where, how much of a role play do you want it to be? Again, this goes back into the concept of the character, where if you saved your stats for last after you already had this character in mind, right? How would you play it out if you had this character in mind, but then you got an 8 intelligence? Like, you could still be that character, right? But like Sean said, the numbers or the stats are just on the sheet of paper. So you could still be you and how you want to play your character. But when it comes to, for whatever reason, let's say it was an 8 in charisma,
Yeah, it could be any stat.
character
Yeah.
super charismatic. He's a ladies' man. He goes around. He gets into all the high classy places. But for whatever reason, every time you have him roll some charisma shit, it's just terrible. So
Right.
it put the whole thing into it. Like
That's great. Yeah.
and that's not to say that. Remember how I said before about like that wishy-washy area where you get to like a certain point and then you roll your stats and then you kind of finish the character off? It could be the same thing where, okay, so maybe you had this idea for a character and then you're like, all right, I'm kind of in a flux here. Let's just see what my stats are. You get this. It's like, well, how would it be to play an 8 intelligence character? It can actually help you flush out the other half of your character too. So there's lots of ways to go about it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like it totally detrimenting a character, I love how the idea that we're using is just openly shitting in the streets. Like that's not what your 8 intelligence character does.
Right.
Like I think we can all agree on that.
Well,
which
you
is
have a 10 wisdom. I mean, come on, you've got common sense.
yeah, you're super charismatic, and it's like that's not my shit. Like we all know you do that. But regardless, I think there's two ways to play it. You could either make your guy or gal be totally confident in who you are, and you save the stats for last, and then you put them where you want them, right? Or if you're in the wishy-washy and you come back and you finish it off, and it's like, actually, it'd be kind of fun to play a guy who, let's say you're a fighter, you're a dex-based fighter, and you're 8 strength. Well, I mean, how do you want to play that? You go to do a strength check, you're just not that good at it. Like, that's just who your character
But
is.
an 8 is only a -1, so you could still do a 19.
Yeah, right. So yeah. So if you just take it from the perspective of the numbers are on the sheet of paper to storily tell you things that are happening, it doesn't necessarily have to deviate how you play the character. But if you want to use it that way, because I do it for some of my characters, I have an 8 intelligence monk. He does all of his decisions by flipping a coin. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, it's not that he's an idiot. It's just that he's Tamora is his goddess, the Lady Luck.
The luck,
so
yeah.
That's how I make decisions now. Is based off of coin. And by the way, it's a 2-headed coin, so it's heads on both sides. But he doesn't know that. That's like a little bit of his, just a little bit of a shtup. Like, it's not a big deal. It doesn't break anything. But
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's just fun to kind of play into that a little bit. No one's saying you have to, but you can.
Right.
In terms of
you definitely can. Yeah.
If I'm okay with repeating some of the dead horse things, like I know going back to like Critical Role is an example, it's like cliche, but there's one instance where if you watched it in the season, not makes an attempt at something to make a persuasion or a deception roll and rolls a 0, kind of thing. But the way that the character portrayed it, they were trying their darndest, and the way that the DM described, without getting any spoilers, the way that the DM described it, it made it appear that some outside element happened to the character which caused it to fail. It wasn't like, oh, we just don't believe you talking, or what you're saying is not, plausible. It's just that circumstances happened outside of your knowledge or whereabouts,
right,
which led to your thing being a complete like, nope, not going to happen. So I love that with the DM too. It's like your stats don't have to define you, but they can certainly help make a story happen where you try to do something and something around you makes it so that your attempt goes bottoms up.
Yeah, I've run into this situation where I was running through Curse of Strahd and I had an 8 charisma. We tried to, rally the town to get to support us, and it's, the DM described it as, it's not that your words weren't convincing or that you just don't know how to talk to people. It's just those people were already so downtrodden that really nothing you say could have stirred them to action. It's not your fault. You said the right things. You had a werewolf's head in your hands. There was nothing you could do. Yeah, stats on the sheets can inform your role play. Like, Kyle was saying, they're good things to base ideas off of, but they should never decide it for you.
Right. Awesome. Well, those are our top 5 pet peeves. I hope everybody had a good time. We're going to transition now into focusing on the chat. So if you guys have anything you guys want to talk about, any questions for us, comments, concerns, tips, anything like that, We're going to be focusing on you guys, and we're going to be talking about the things you want to talk about. The ideas may come up slowly. If they do, then we'll just talk about whatever we want to talk about, but we'll try to focus on the questions as they pop up.
I want to see every one of Kyle's players ask him embarrassing questions.
Give us some dirt on Kyle.
Yeah, focus on Kyle. Yes, he will not hurt you and have repercussions in your game. No, do not fear the power of the DM.
It is only illusion.
They all have backup characters anyway. So
yeah, there you go. All right.
Totally
So Shadow asks, how did you come up with your method of character creation? It was a hodgepodge of concepts. I was trying to come up with like just new things that I hadn't seen or heard of before. But I also had collected from Roll20 other people who were interested in building a world and maybe not be the headliner for it. And collected a group. It varied. I mean, it started off at like 4 or 5, but then it grew to 12 and then kind of died down. But at the very beginning, it was also getting the feedback from those other developers on them also trying to think of new, interesting ways of doing character creation. Because we knew we were looking for people with experience who were ambitious to grow their experience, and hopefully we're all trying to make a career out of this, obviously. But if not, we still want to have a good time with other experienced players. So it was a combination of my own ideas, but also heavily relying on my devs. Just kind of give a shout out to all of you guys out there who've been helping with this. None of this stuff could have happened if it wasn't for my dev team. They are the real power behind the screen. They don't always get screen time. Like Kayla doing all the Divinity stuff, she came up with some awesome stuff. And the players actually haven't got to experience the fullness of the game because we're still doing session 0, and we're probably doing the most session 0s out of any campaign ever. But
it's a prequel, man. It's a prequel.
It'll definitely pay off in the long run, and it's also given us a lot of time to work out stuff for the stream and for giveaway, like all the other stuff that comes with streaming a campaign, because this is a first for me for doing it on Twitch and everything like that. So yeah, that's that one.
Yeah. I just want to go to King of Sparta's question. I know
Sure.
Kyle already touched on it, but Roll20 is definitely a good resource. But I mean, the way I found my first campaign is just hit up your local game stores. Go, see if there's a comic shop around that does it. See if there's a hobby shop around that's hosting games. Check out basically any site like meetup.com, depending on your city, might have some. If you're in a larger city, it'll be a lot easier. If you're in a smaller city, it'll be a little harder. I'll look up D&D Adventurers League, see if there's a group around you.
Is this any tips for complete noob on how to find a first game for D&D? Is that that question? Okay.
Sorry. Yeah,
no,
and I didn't want to
read the question.
Skip over. Sorry, yeah. Said any tips for a complete noob on how to find a first game for D&D. And I want to make sure Spaz knows we're not skipping over him. But
it's
yeah,
okay. We don't care about Spaz.
He's a dev. Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah.
That's the dev.
Oh, well then, never mind.
Yeah.
Something mean. No, those just hit the ground and check as many comic stores or game shops nearby as you can as a good start.
I think it's a good thing to establish too if you want to play like physical tabletop where you're rolling real dice with miniatures and maps, or do you want to play digitally like on Roll20? There's other platforms out there too, but we use Roll20, so that's the one we talk about. So if you're wanting to play on Roll20, it doesn't have to be on a streamed one. I definitely don't recommend a streamed one for the learning curve. But if you jump onto Roll20, you can go into the forums, and there are people who will make posts. Hey, teaching new players, from scratch. I definitely recommend those, because if a DM is structuring his game to teach, that is the perfect place for you to be in. And just surround yourself with other people, and don't be afraid of getting into as many of those as you can, because D&D is one of the best games I've ever played, and it's definitely worth the time investment for learning. Does anybody else have anything on that while we look at
just to piggyback, locally, like Steven was saying, another thing that I've actually seen, Meetup's a good one. I have subscribed to like the D&D meetup just to kind of see, you know, how often it gets posted like every week that there's like Comic Shop has one for live Adventure League, this thing. And also, interestingly enough, if you just search like on Facebook, like just local D&D, just see what that brings up. Like I found that there's a local D&D page just for like my city of like people looking for players or people doing this or talking about this, or you know, you could probably, like you said, in larger cities, I'm sure it's even bigger than that. So you can make new friends. You know, that's what it's all about, man. Meet new friends and stuff. And obviously, Roll20 is one of the easier ones. And
Right.
Facebook networking, all that stuff. Just reach out.
So we got a question from Neff. I'm curious what house rules, if any, you guys might have. I'll let you guys answer that. What house rules do we have that's unique maybe to other games?
Whoever bring the snacks dies last.
I would never die.
I think the one thing I will say about house rules I find more fun is the fact that they should be something that you implement if you feel like it's important for the characters or the story. Like there are times when I've had moments where like a person would like to play a Dragonborn, but the Dragonborn breath weapon is kind of something that gets like barely used or seen because it's usually not that frequently taken over in action. It's like, why would I want to do that? So I will then sometimes say, okay, for house rule, bonus action. It doesn't really take that long for you to just kind of go, I'm fighting, and there it goes out, kind of thing. I can easily believe that. Other ones that I've done before have been for other more like experienced players. They like to have a challenge, so I'll throw in some more like house rules that make it different or difficult. Like one of the house rules I do, and what I'm going to be doing for experienced players is long rests do not heal you to full health. Long rests are basically like the idea that you get everything back at max, but in this one it's like you are not a Superman, you're not Wolverine, you don't just regenerate overnight. So it was the idea that if you took a long rest, you just got all your hit dice back. So every time you were healing, it was just based on the luck of the roll, and sometimes you could get back to full, but sometimes you might start the next day with like a little bit too much of a, ooh, that one stabbed a little deeper than I thought it might. I have to kind of walk around the next day with a little bit of like ouch kind of thing. So there was like, it all depends. I think it's great for you to use it for each custom game or player whenever you feel like it will make the game more fun.
Okay.
I mean, whether you want to call it a house rule or not, but like a house mechanic, again, because it's the first that I've ever seen it or done it or experienced it, was going back to the ability score modifications. Like, I thought that was really cool. Again, if you want to call it a house rule or whatever.
You mean?
Yeah, that we did. Yes, correct. For this,
oh yeah, that was great.
It was for us, right?
Yeah.
What's the right?
Yeah, okay. Adding negative modifiers.
No, you're good. Yeah, so like just going through, I mean, it was not only cool aspect to add to the game, but also, again, that was when we were really, trying to add that little bit of fleshing out of the characters too. So, how is Finley at acrobatics? Tell me good or bad. And we had to be honest about it. Be like, this is why I'm bad.
Right.
And then explain it. Like,
and that would determine if it was a 4, 6, or an 8 for negative.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just the same on the flip side too. So again, never experienced that before, but I really like it. And that's probably one of the more, when house rules was mentioned, that was the first thing that popped into my mind, because it actually did a couple of things in terms of different chapters of our characters. That was pretty cool. Definitely unique.
Anything else?
Kayla!
Yeah, house rules, Kayla. Because you DM all the time.
I don't DM all the time. I mean, I'm still relatively new to DMing, to D&D in general. I've only been playing for like a couple of years. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to tweak rules, because anytime I try to tweak rules, it never ends up working out very well. So, I will adapt certain house rules that I've heard that I liked. Like I do like the idea of like doing the ability modifiers. I think that's really cool. I had never heard of that until
this time.
So, and then I always kind of hated the fact that like players get all their health back And I had never thought about doing it that way, Andrew. So I'm
yeah.
probably gonna try to adapt.
Try
that.
All your players are like, no, Andrew,
My
why?
players will not
It's fun. You'll have more fun.
Yeah. So, but no big homebrew. Nothing.
I mistook the question. I thought it was just HotA.
I thought it
home
was too, but it's
I
fine. We
didn't know it
can.
was individuals, but that's okay. That's all right.
Do
I
we
really
have
don't have any.
for HotA home rules that you guys noticed was different than what you've normally seen?
Well, I mean, there are
That was
some
not
that
the
are actually
ability
there
to-
that we kind of get told about a little bit later and are known about, but
The what?
they'll change. Like it's usually like whatever a DM calls on something for this world, which we don't know yet until we encounter it, which could be a house rule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which again, if it progresses the story and makes sense for the story, do it.
Shadow asks, what classes have you all not played as yet?
Clerics.
have you not
Shocking.
played a cleric?
Look, Kyle, you can't hate on a class that you haven't played.
Yeah,
Okay?
they're
I
gonna do
don't.
that.
I don't hate on clerics. I'm just saying.
You said a
personally,
lot about clerics tonight.
I do not see myself playing one. And what's crazy, one of the big reasons is that I can't see myself being the healer specifically. Not that clerics have to be, but 98% of the time. Interestingly enough, in my Monday game, I'm a shepherd druid, and one of the cool things you could do is throw down a unicorn and heal fucking everybody. So it's
Yep.
like, but it's the only time I do it. It's like one specific time. It's not every time I'm healing everyone under God's creation here, but
Just go.
I don't know what it is. What's that?
Just go war forge cleric, and then you don't heal anybody. You just hit the shit out of everybody.
I don't know. It's the only. I think it's the only one that I haven't played. I think it's the only one left, if I'm not mistaken. But there's my
Wizard,
answer. You guys, you could go.
I've never played a wizard. I had to think for a second.
I haven't
It's
either.
just none of the classes or none of
Show more
the
love.
like schools ever grabbed me enough that I could make a class or make a character around it. Although we
Me
talked
too.
about it before, if there's a one shot, I might have to roll up Muscle Wizard. That 20 in strength, go Mountain Dwarf, so you get full plate, learn Shield, and then just cast Fist.
Muscle.
Yeah.
Muscle.
Muscle Wizard.
Now, I remember when that was a thing. I do. Oh gosh.
Rogues and barbarians are my two favorites. So it's rare that I actually make characters because I'm usually running games now. But back when I was playing, barbarians and rogues are my favorite. So all the rest.
I have played all the classes, but I have not played all of the archetypes. So I mean, I know the classes, but I've never, for instance, I've not played I've not played all the warlock patrons. There's so freaking many. I haven't done all of them. Some of the homebrew stuff I still haven't experienced. I haven't done the theologian wizard or the technomancer wizard. I haven't tried those, and I haven't done any of the even more crazy homebrewed stuff that got thrown in. Like Kayla played one that I only just like read up on but never played, which is the Artificer. Yeah, I mean, I haven't played that one, but it's technically, I think, a homebrew-ish one or somewhere outside
Expanded, I think.
It's UA.
I think it's out there. Yeah, it's UA. Yeah, I think it's out there. It's
all right. So UA
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
I think it expanded on that too, where it's Artificer, the one with the construct, and then the Thundermonger one, right? So it used to be two.
Artificers, yeah. Two archetypes.
Question that we skipped over was from Spaz, so we'll come back to that since we haven't got any more. How do you feel about multi-classing and the pros that come with them? Of course, Spaz would ask that. Spaz is our mechanics, monsters, maps developer. He loves mechanical challenges.
I've just given him the title Evil Genius.
Yeah.
I think that kind of covers everything.
Is he though?
Yes.
Oh, goody!
Yes,
I look
yes.
forward to his
If
creations coming up.
If you had heard some of the conversations we devs have had, Evil Genius.
Yeah.
Right
Nice.
If he had his full reign of doing whatever he wanted to, you guys would be in fetal positions crying.
Oh, you see, I like the challenges.
But
But now,
he's-
now I feel like it's like if any kind of shit happens,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sheldon's just gonna
he's like the
default.
balance for me because I'm like, let's just let them have fun. And he's like, they need to die. So we find a really good middle ground. He balances me really well.
I feel like it's like you brought up on the screen. This encounter was brought to you by Spaz Gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we
This
go.
TPK was brought to you by
Yes,
Spaz.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well-
multi-classing. How do you guys feel about that? And the pros.
Mixed emotions. I don't
Go
know.
on.
It can go on. It can go either way. When I DM, I don't make this a hard and fast rule, but just to make sure people aren't power gamer or min maxing, I'll ask them, how and why would your character multi-class into this? Are you just trying to abuse the mechanics, or do you have a reason to do it? Like Kyle brought up, there's gray areas where you can go good or bad with it. If there's a spot in the group you're trying to fill, that can be a great reason to multi-class, or maybe you're satisfied with where your class is taking you, and now you just want to expand your skill list a little bit. There can be great reasons for it, but I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I've never multi-classed. I'm not the biggest fan of the concept, but that's me.
I think it's definitely an underutilized option in D&D. Most people will just run straight through. And then another aspect of why we don't see it very often is the nature of this game. Campaigns don't normally go on as long as the players want to. Either players drop out, people stop showing up, the DM has life changes, so groups kind of fizzle out. So most players, I would say, don't get past a level threshold where classing is feasible or makes sense. Just from my own viewing of other games, I try to have mine go very long so people can have that option. But you do end up losing out on the top end of certain classes. So the last few levels is usually where you get like the level 9 spell slot. You know, like the really good stuff. The reason why you were doing it is to become a demigod. You know, so it takes a lot of knowledge of what you get at what levels. But some classes, the last couple levels aren't actually that beneficial to where you get to 16, 17. You kind of got the best stuff you can get. So those last few levels, you could get something else. So would you get it earlier to benefit then, or would you get it later to where, well, being a level 3 rogue on top of being a wizard, like, is that really going to benefit you at a level 20 campaign? But campaigns don't normally get to that point, in my experience. Some do, but it's very few between. Does anybody else have anything else? We have other questions.
I would just say, again, it's the gray area. A great place for multi-classing is a murder hobo, especially if you just want to min-max, like Steven was saying about, I just want to see what this combination will yield in terms of the mechanics of it. In-game, with like more of an actual like heavy campaign kind of thing, I think it can actually make for some really cool storyline stuff. If it's something that, you know, the player and the DM really talk about, and it's the intention of it, like what Steven was saying, you know, is the intention because you not only want to do this thing to your character to make them a little better, but also for the story, or you just try to just do it to be a little better because of numbers and things. Like, I think I would be a little bit more on the open concept conversation if it is both, not so much just, well, because this combo works great. Not to say that that's not fun to do. I mean, that's half the fun of character creation in the first place, is seeing what kind of combos are fun to do. I just like to have a little bit more of that explanation, and then we can tie it in. Like, we can make that a thing that happens, and really and give the DM that trust to bring it into the fold. Like, just a real quick example, my Wednesday game, my one character wanted to multi into wizard, and we talked about it, and it was a story and a mechanic. I was like, cool. Do you have an idea of how you want that to happen, or do you want me to be a little creative with it? He said, no, man, just surprise me with it. So he didn't even know what it was coming, which is kind of fun, right? And when I presented it to him in the form of like this really cool wizard book that he found in a store, that like the pages moved and the cover moved and everything, and it was a level up period, so now he can multi-class into it. Like, I just think that's a little bit cooler than just saying, all right, you're a level 6 thing, you could do that now if you want to. Like, just for the mechanics of it. But if you don't have that conversation, it's a little bit like,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be a fun way to let your DM more include you in the story, like Kyle was saying. That's the route one of my characters is going. He's a ranger, and now he's multi-classing into cleric. I promise I had that planned before I met you, Kyle, so not just more cleric talk to make him mad. But yeah, so that's been a big part of our story so far since we transitioned from Curse of Strahd to a homebrew setting. And that's been his big, like, Curse of Strahd, he completed what he needed to do. Now he's got to find something else to do with his life, and he's joining the clergy because complicated backstory stuff that's not in the purview of this show, so I won't bore you with it. But yeah, it can be a good character moment if you play it right.
Let's do our last question, and we'll make it brief. How hard has currency management been in past campaigns? I'm going to not answer that one just for sake of time, but if you guys want to say anything on that, go ahead.
My least favorite part of any campaign.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's boring and terrible, but it's necessary and you have to do it, and I hate it.
Currency management in terms of like players trying to buy stuff, DMs divvying it out for doing stuff. Like, I'm not following the question specifically.
I'm assuming they're meaning like just keeping track of it and making sure that players are either not being too endorsed with riches or being overly concerned about gold, maybe.
Economy management, no, that's hard. He said, oh no, that was Spaz. That was him.
What I've done before is a lot of the times one of the great things to do is to give the players options where you make it real, where you say that there's copper, silver, and gold, and when you find a treasure trove, you might find 6,000 silver, but carrying that much is going to be near impossible. And when you translate it to gold, it just only goes down to 600. So there's that to kind of give you like incentives of needing to trade off. But another thing that I like to do is, if the world is based on a true economy, you can kind of gauge the players a little bit to what you have. Like if there's a surplus of wealth or a surplus of something that came along, then prices will kind of get raised up. So what I like to do is I just write down on a piece of paper all the gold reward that they've accumulated in total, and then I'll just minus away if I say they spent something. So if like say, oh, this is the gold kind of thing. So I'll always know their party average. So I know like the parties has like maybe 10,000 gold. If there's an item out there that they really want, and I'm like, you're too early to get it right now, or it should be more expensive, I'm going to bump it to 50,000. It's like the codex might say that it's a 20,000 gold, but I'm just going to say it's very far out of your range.
Right.
It's not likely for you to get it. So it's good to do it in clumps rather than try to worry about the individual player and how they got their own gold and what they're saving for specifically. If you can keep it in a large general pocket, it's a little easier to kind of understand. And then don't forget, you are the DM. You can make it up whatever price you want, so you can control the player and the world economy.
I absolutely despise currency, and I'll usually come up, no matter what the setting is, no matter what I'll come up with some different mechanic to make it not important. I'll still have it there, but it's not going to be the main driving force for getting shit for your character. Some people really like that, the stat crunching and the economy, and fish are worth this, and you can trade it at this post for this much. Like some people really enjoy that. Me personally, it's a drag, and it's just going to slow me down. There's so many other things I could spend my time doing. So I'll have other like what do we call it, like landmark moments where things will happen, like for you to get the shit, and we'll just throw in some gold if you want to buy adventuring gear. You're like, I want to buy a net or caltrops, or like that's what that's for how I like to run games, not necessarily how you're going to get your +2 sword. Like if you're wanting to get a +2 sword, well then just let me know and I'll try to incorporate you able to require one for a good reason. All right. So, does anybody have anything else about currency? No?
Not really.
Yes?
I
No?
mean,
Okay.
just no.
All right, we'll take our last 5-minute break, and when we come back, we will start doing giveaways. So we'll start off with HotA points, and we'll put some stipulations out, see if we can get some stimulation in the chat, and we might give away some HotA tokens as well. But we will be right back. Thanks for sticking with us.
Ooh.
No.
All right, welcome back. So everyone who's
Hey!
here is probably here for the raffle. So let's go ahead and start it. And for players and
Yes,
devs who are in there
nice.
too, might as well jump in. So we're gonna do 1,000 point HOTA 1,000 HOTA points raffle. So I will open it right meow. So it's
Meow.
exclamation point raffle. You only need to do it once. Multiple entries will not get you in more than once. So go ahead and do that now.
Sean's new character, Tabaxi Rogue, who can only say right meow,
Right meow.
I look like a cat. Not jumping from tree to tree on nimbly bimbly.
Yeah, drinking milk from a saucer. All right, we got shadows in. Exclamation point raffle will get you in. King of Sparta, welcome to the raffle.
King of Sparta.
That's the thing we should talk
Right
about.
meow.
Roll20's character mancer for character creation.
Oh, that.
I've had a lot of problems doing that.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a good idea. My problem is like they expect or want people to buy the books on there as well, but it's like I just bought Xanathar's Guide for $50 for a physical copy. I don't want to have to pay another $50 just so I don't have to copy and paste it when I can find it for free somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times, if you put in the custom like backgrounds or character subclasses or whatever, it doesn't transfer it over when the sheet's done. So then you got to redo it, and it's.
I think that's I think that is
Yeah,
something
Kyle,
that
you can
Roll20 though has to kind of be careful about, because I think where it says it's like the public domain for D&D is like a little so-so. Like some things that they come out recently,
Yeah, the XRD.
access to. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
they could the fair domain of the D&D kind of general is what they've got. And I don't think they can do the new releases, and that's why like UA stuff and Xanathars aren't being put on Roll20, because they don't technically have like a license agreement, maybe.
I think that's. Well, I know you can buy the books and add those to the character mancer, but yeah, they don't have the straight up license agreements. I think they're not like an official Wizards partner, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, they can't like compendium it or like have it as a default option, sort of.
Yeah,
thing.
unless you pay them more money and buy the book again.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. I mean, it's fair. Roll20 is a business. They want to make money. I don't blame them, but I don't know. I wish there was a way you could buy your book at a local game store and then come back and just put in a code.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, if Roll20 was probably picked up or taken over by them, that would certainly be a thing that they do at that point.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll
2
start
minutes
doing
left for the giveaway.
and they'll just like give you codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the current games today now are shared accounts.
Yeah. Shadow makes a good point. D&D Beyond's character creator is really good.
This will soon happen when Amazon takes it over. And they will
Amazon takes over everything.
Yep.
Yeah. D&D Beyond's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, Dolphin said roll 20. Oh wait. Oh, we got a blow.
Go big!
Said but
Ryan!
roll 20 only has the Acolyte background. Why one but not the others in the player handbook? It's true.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
so
That's
stupid.
the
Why is there
only
only
background
one?
it
Yeah.
has. Unless by the PHB, then it brings you everything else. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just.
Oh, Ryan's here. He said he just got done running a session. Ryan, you got 1 minute 20 seconds into the raffle if you want to jump in there. We got 4 people in.
Well, he starts a heist instead.
Oh.
Right into it.
Brian likes
Heist
doing
away.
heist. I've noticed.
Oh, there he goes. All right, we got 1 minute left.
Hey.
If we can get 1 subscriber, we will do a HOTA tokens giveaway after this raffle. But if not, then we'll just end it with the HOTA points. So if anybody's watching and is following, hasn't subscribed yet, some benefits of subscribing. You get a custom emote, or you get a emote based on which tier you go in at. So let's see, we got a normal, a silver, and a gold. So I'll put that in the chat so you can see it. And then let's see. And then you also get a custom icon that'll be on your name whenever you message in the chat. You also will get 500 loyalty points. Loyalty points are for like when the actual campaign's going, you can use loyalty points to purchase potions or inspiration points for the players while it's going on. Thanks for the cheers, Ryan. All right, 8 seconds left. Oh, and you also have a better chance of winning in the mini games. Oh, we got a subscriber. Perfect. We'll do a token giveaway.
Ooh,
Thanks, Shadow.
Hey. All right, Shadow.
with that Prime again, Amazon.
That's awesome.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you.
There it is.
Name is Shadow Kills, but
All
All right. The giveaway has closed. We will pick a winner. Kyle won.
Kyle.
I would like to. I was waiting to see after the check. Can I give my points to Shadow? Can
Sure.
we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do
Alright.
that. So Shadow, type exclamation HotA points, so everybody can see how much you got, and then we'll do it afterwards as well. Let's see, currency.
Yeah. Good job, Steven.
I gotta find him. I got so many people in this list.
What if I did? What can I do? Can I split it between Steven and Shadow? Can I
Sure.
do 500 apiece?
Yeah, let's
I'll
do
do
that. Shadow is at 161.
Because Steven freaking crushed it.
So we'll go Shadow will
You're
be
awesome,
at
Steven, bro.
The
661.
natural.
And then who was the other person?
DJ Stevens.
DJ Steve Source.
DJ.
The name I made in like 8th grade and have just stuck with since.
I mean,
Yeah.
it rocks, so just keep it.
Yeah.
Just keep on, keep it
Alright,
on, man.
We'll give you 500 points. Awesome.
I had one guy message me once like, "Hey, dude, I found your DJ page. Your stuff's good." I'm like, "The hell are you talking about?" It's like, I don't make music. This is a dumb thing I made when I was 12 because I thought dinosaurs and DJs were cool.
All right, I'm opening a giveaway for 10 HotA tokens. So it's what these are here, and I will mail them out tomorrow. All of our players have them, and we did our first giveaway yesterday. Yeah, Kayla doesn't have any. I'll have to
I
send some
don't
to you.
have any.
Ew.
So I'm gonna open that up. If you are a player or dev, don't enter into this
Nope,
giveaway.
nope. I'm good. I'm good.
So exclamation point raffle. So we got DJ Steve is in.
Why not?
Yeah, go for it, man.
I didn't enter the raffle because I thought I wasn't allowed, but
No, yeah,
apparently
that,
there are
that's
no
fine.
rules.
No, you're fine. So we got 4. We got DJ Steve. We got the Dolphin, Shadow, and King of Sparta.
Oh, Dolphin Jesus.
I love it.
He was interesting to have as a
You're here in
player.
spirit, Ryan. All right, we'll leave this open for another minute or so.
When Dolphin Jesus rolled up his backup character, they give you those random names in Roll20, and his was Emo Thought, and it was so hilarious we kept it.
Emo
Just-
thought. I like
Emo Thought. And we laughed. I was like, "You could change." He's like, "No, it's this now."
it. If it's meant to.
You are this now. So remember when you weren't, but now you are.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close it. So we got 4 of them in there. I wish everybody luck. Here we
Good luck.
go.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.
1 in 4.
Winner, King of Sparta. Congratulations.
Hey, nice. Congrats. Congrats.
Won
Work, buddy.
10 HotA tokens. So, King Sparta, if you send me a PM through Twitch, give me your mailing address. No one else will see it, and then I'll get those sent out for you tomorrow. So, congrats.
Yay!
Congrats. Yay.
Oops.
Congratulations.
So jealous.
You have to
Kayla
what
doesn't-
Dev does.
I'll
Just
send some out for
throw
you,
that out
Kayla,
there.
tomorrow too, because you haven't gotten it yet. So yeah, King of Sparta, send me a PM real quick. I'll keep the stream going until you do that. So let's.
Well, while we're waiting, I can't stress it enough, man. I had a great time. First episode of RDI was a great conversation, and time flies when you're having fun. And again, can't stress enough the kudos to Stephen Knoll hopping in and hanging out with us. Like, that's like, oh man, just jumped right in like he's
Thank
been
you,
the whole time, man. Like, great conversations, and thanks for hanging out with us. And thanks for everyone for watching.
Yeah.
Mr.
Thank you.
Kitty
Guys.
likes D&D. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Ah.
King of Sparta, send me a message. Yes, it is. Okay. Cool. So I got him going. Does anybody have any Anything they want to plug or anything?
No.
No.
I don't stream anything. I
Okay.
don't have anything.
Okay.
I'm just a guy.
I'll just shameless plug Aurelia again one more time, who made the pictures for us. Litchy's Workshop on Facebook.
They're so cute.
Oh,
Our
the
chibis, our chibis.
yes.
Yeah, so I feel great to hear about those. And again, we'll always just say thank you to everyone who watches us on Tuesdays and on RDIs for this and PvP coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many things, you guys. And Adventure Buddy has Dragon Heist coming up on Monday, so we're rock and rolling. And appreciate everyone coming along as we're rock and rolling together. So it's pretty cool.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.